Hello guys. Welcome to Pika Fiction. So in this video, we will see what if Ash was the reincarnation of Mew and built a harem of psychic girls. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Genome Awakening. The headache tasted like copper. It wasn't a normal ache. Not the dull throb of dehydration or the sharp stab of a concussion. This was deeper. It sat behind the eyes, a persistent, resonant hum that felt less like pain and more like a radio frequency jammed open at maximum volume. Ash Ketchum sat on a moss-slicked log, the fire before him reduced to dying embers. At 19, the softness of his boyhood had chiseled away into something leaner, harder. The chaotic energy that had once defined him had settled into a stillness that unnerved people who hadn't seen him in years. He rubbed his temples, the leather of his gloves creaking in the silence of the Viridian outskirts. Pika. The yellow mouse sat on his knee, ears swiveled back. Pikachu didn't look at the fire. He looked at Ash. He had been doing that for weeks. Watching Ash with a mixture of fierce loyalty and confused hesitation. Animals knew when the weather was changing before the clouds arrived. Pikachu knew something was shifting in the boy he had walked the earth with. "I'm fine, buddy," Ash lied. His voice was rough, unused for days, just the pressure. He closed his eyes, trying to shut out the world, but the world didn't want to be shut out. That was the problem. Lately, he didn't just see the forest. He felt it. He could sense the heartbeat of a Rattata 300 yards away, burrowed in the mulch. He could feel the slow, hydraulic pressure of sap moving through the oak trees. It was an ocean of information, and he was drowning in it. He stood up, needing to pace. As he rose, his boots didn't crunch the dry leaves immediately. For a fraction of a second, just a heartbeat, he hovered. He dropped the half-inch to the ground with a soft thud. Ash froze, staring at his feet. It had happened again. Gravity feeling optional. A suggestion rather than a law. He clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms until the sharp sting grounded him. What is happening to me? He wasn't an Aura Guardian anymore. This wasn't the blue, empathetic waves of Lucario. This was something colder. Something ancient. It felt like his DNA was unzipping and knitting itself back together in a shape that didn't fit a human blueprint. A twig snapped. The sound wasn't natural. It was too heavy, too deliberate. Ash's head snapped up. The sensory overload that had been crippling him a moment ago suddenly sharpened into a terrifying clarity. The headache vanished, replaced by a radar-like ping. 6 heat signatures. North Ridge. Heart rates elevated. Adrenaline. Metal. Electricity. "Pikachu," Ash said, his voice dropping to a calm, dangerous octave. "Irontail. 6 o'clock. Hi." He didn't wait to see if Pikachu obeyed. He knew he would. Ash spun, dropping low as a net made of electrified tungsten mesh hissed through the air where his head had been a second before. Pikachu was a blur of yellow lightning, his tail slamming into the drone that had fired the net, shattering its rotors. The machine sparked and spiraled into the brush. "Target acquired," a synthesized voice echoed from the dark, suppressing. Floodlights bathed the clearing in blinding white. Ash threw his arm up, shielding his eyes, but his mind didn't need to see. He could feel them. 6 figures in matte black tactical gear, their faces obscured by thermal visors. They weren't Team Rocket grunts stumbling over their own shoelaces. These men moved with military precision. "Surrender the assets," the lead mercenary barked. He held a heavy rifle, something that fired containment foam, likely laced with sedatives strong enough to drop a Tyranitar. "You're poaching in a protected zone," Ash said. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. He stepped forward, the firelight catching the edge of his jaw. "Leave the gear. Walk away. I won't ask twice." The mercenary laughed, a sharp, metallic sound. "We aren't here for the rat, kid. We're here for the anomaly. Readings spike every time you bleed. Grab him." 3 of them rushed him. Pikachu surged forward, cheeks sparking, ready to unleash a thunderbolt, but Ash signaled him to stop. No, the command wasn't spoken. It was projected. A psychic shove that stopped Pikachu in his tracks. Ash didn't want Pikachu to fight. He felt a sudden, overwhelming possessiveness. A territorial rage that felt alien, like a dragon waking up in his chest. Mine. The forest was his. The air was his. These intruders were a virus. The first mercenary swung a shock baton. Ash didn't dodge, he simply wasn't there anymore. He moved faster than human muscle twitch fibers should allow. He was a blur, reappearing inside the mercenary's guard. Ash grabbed the man's wrist. Crunch. The tactical armor crumpled like tin foil. The mercenary screamed as the bones in his forearm turned to powder under Ash's grip. Ash didn't grimace. He didn't feel revulsion. He felt the man's pain as data, a red spike of neural activity that he could simply switch off. He threw the man. Not a shove, but a telekinetic blast masquerading as a throw. The mercenary flew 40 feet, smashing into a pine tree with enough force to crack the trunk. The clearing went silent. The remaining 5 mercenaries froze, the floodlights flickered. "What the hell is he?" one whispered. "Open fire, lethal force authorized." The remaining rifles roared. Time didn't stop, but for Ash, it dismantled itself. He saw the projectiles moving through the air, heavy rubber slugs encased in steel. He could calculate their trajectory, their velocity, their impact points. He raised his hand. He didn't know a move named Psychic. He didn't call out an attack. He just willed it. He imposed his reality over theirs. The air in the clearing turned a violent, shimmering violet. The slugs stopped dead in midair, inches from his face, suspended in a field of crushing gravity. Ash's eyes, usually a warm brown, were glowing. A soft, iridescent blue-pink luminescence flooded his irises. He felt the energy coil in his gut, limitless and playful and terrifying. He could unmake them. He could twist their atoms until they were nothing but carbon dust. "Do it," a voice in his blood whispered. "Play with them." "Ash." Pikachu's cry was desperate, terrified. It cut through the haze. Ash blinked. The glow faded slightly. He looked at the suspended bullets, then at the terrified men. He clenched his fist. The bullets dropped to the ground. Then, Ash swung his arm horizontally. A shockwave of pure kinetic force slammed into the mercenaries. It lifted them, all 5 remaining men, and hurled them back into the darkness of the woods. Equipment shattered. Bones snapped. Silence returned to the clearing, save for the crackle of the dying fire. Ash stood alone in the center of the camp. He was breathing hard, but not from exertion. He was breathing because his heart was beating so fast it hurt. He looked at his hands. They were trembling. Faint traces of pink energy arced between his fingers like static electricity. "Pika-Pie?" Pikachu approached slowly, ears flat, tail dragging. He sniffed Ash's hand, then recoiled, sneezing. Ash smelled like ozone and ancient dust. He smelled like something that didn't belong in the Kanto region. Ash choked out. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest. The power was receding, but it left a vacuum behind. He felt hollowed out. I don't know what that was. But he did know. Deep down, past the fear, he knew. He reached into his pocket, his trembling fingers brushing against the worn surface of his Pokédex. He didn't pull it out. He needed help. He needed someone who understood the mind, someone who lived in the space between reality and the impossible. The list of people he trusted was long. The list of people who could handle this consisted of one name. "Saffron," Ash whispered, staring at the soil. "We have to go to Saffron." The journey to Saffron City took 2 days. Ash moved like a ghost, sticking to the tree lines, avoiding the main roads. He wore his travel cloak with the hood pulled low, casting a shadow over his face. He was starving, but he couldn't eat. Normal food tasted like ash. The only thing that satiated the gnawing hunger in his gut was sunlight. He found himself stopping in patches of sun, soaking it in, feeling his cells metabolize the solar radiation directly. It was efficient. It was monstrous. By the time the sprawling skyline of Saffron came into view, the noise was deafening. Cities had always been loud, but for the new Ash, they were a cacophony of psychic static. Millions of thoughts, millions of electrical impulses from the grid, the emotional residue of a million people living their lives. It slammed into his mental barriers like a physical tide. He stumbled as he crossed the city limits, leaning against a brick wall in a back alley. Confusion. Lust. Anger. The price of coffee. The train schedule. My feet hurt. Does she love me? The thoughts of strangers leaked into his head. "Quiet," he hissed, pressing his palms into his eyes. Quiet, quiet, quiet. Pikachu sat on his shoulder, nuzzling his cheek, trying to offer a grounding point. Ash focused on the electric familiarity of his starter. Pikachu. Just Pikachu. He pushed off the wall and navigated the labyrinth of streets. He didn't need a map. He could feel the pulse of the gym. It was a lighthouse in the fog. A massive, disciplined column of psychic energy rising from the center of the city. Sabrina. She was there. He could feel her mind, cold, sharp, and incredibly ordered. It was the only thing in the city that wasn't screaming. He reached the Saffron Gym at dusk. The challengers were leaving, heads down, nursing bruised egos. The guards at the front recognized him. Who wouldn't recognize the world champion? But they stepped back as he approached. Mr. Ketchum, one guard started, the gym leader is done for the... I need to see her, Ash said. He kept his head down, now. There was a command in his voice that bypassed the guard's ears and went straight to his brainstem. The guard blinked, his eyes glazing over for a second. Right. Of course. Go ahead. Ash pushed through the heavy double doors. The interior was cool and dimly lit. The teleportation tiles hummed with latent power. Ash ignored them. He walked straight for the central chamber, the psychic pressure rolling off him in waves he could no longer control. The air around him warped, causing the shadows to lengthen and twist. He reached the main arena. Sabrina sat in the center of the battle court, floating 3 feet off the ground in a lotus position. Her eyes were closed. An Alakazam sat nearby, polishing a spoon, but it froze as Ash entered. The Pokémon sensed it first. The Alakazam hissed, teleporting instantly to place itself between Ash and Sabrina. Sabrina's eyes snapped open. They were red, deep and intelligent, but for the first time in years, they widened in genuine shock. Ash? Her voice echoed in his mind, not the air. Ash lowered his hood. He looked terrible. His skin was pale, almost translucent. The veins around his eyes were dark. But it was the feel of him that made Sabrina unfold her legs and drop to the floor. He didn't feel like a human. He felt like a singularity. A hole in the world where energy was rushing in. Help me, Ash rasped. He took a step forward and collapsed. He didn't hit the floor. Sabrina caught him with her mind, a cradle of blue telekinetic energy lowering him gently. She rushed over, her long dark hair trailing behind her. She knelt beside him, her hands hovering over his chest. What have you done? She whispered, her usual icy demeanor cracking. Your bioelectric field. It's rewriting itself. It won't stop, Ash gasped, clutching her wrist. His skin was burning hot. The voices. The gravity. I can't turn it off. You're psionic, she said, analyzing him with a clinical speed that masked her fear. But this isn't latent awakening. This is forceful evolution. Your neural pathways are expanding faster than your body can support. She placed her hands on his temples. I'm going to create a barrier. A mental dam. I need you to let me in. Ash nodded weakly. Do it. Sabrina closed her eyes and pushed. Usually, entering a mind was like walking into a room. Some were messy, some were locked. Ash's mind had always been a bright, open field, stubborn, sunny, simple. This was not that. As soon as Sabrina made contact, she was sucked into a vortex. Chaos. She gasped, her physical body jerking. Inside the mindscape, she wasn't in a field. She was in space. A primordial void filled with swirling helices of pink and blue DNA. And in the center, staring at her, was not Ash. It was a silhouette. Small, feline, with a long tail drifting in the ether. It possessed eyes of ancient innocence and terrifying power. Mew. The realization hit Sabrina with the force of a physical blow. The genetic memory. The ancestor of all Pokémon. It wasn't just an Ash. It was Ash. The human shell was just a cocoon that was beginning to crack. He is the bridge, a voice echoed in the void. He is the variable. Get out. Ash's voice ripped through the vision. He didn't want her to see that. He pushed back. His psychic rejection was raw and unrefined. It slammed into Sabrina's disciplined shields like a tsunami hitting a glass wall. Crack. In the real world, the windows of the Saffron Gym shattered, the floor tiles exploded upward. Sabrina was thrown back, sliding across the floor. She gasped, blood trickling from her nose. She looked up, eyes wide. Ash was floating. He was upright, unconscious but suspended 5 feet in the air. A sphere of psychic energy surrounded him, jagged, chaotic, violent. It was tearing up the arena. He's going to burn himself out, Sabrina realized with horror. He'll die. She had to ground him. Not with power. He had more raw output than she did now. She had to ground him with humanity. Sabrina stood up, ignoring the debris swirling around the room. She focused. She didn't attack the sphere. She harmonized with it. She matched her frequency to his, a dangerous gambit that could fry her own brain. She walked into the storm. The psychic winds tore at her clothes, but she pushed forward. She reached the center of the sphere where Ash drifted. She grabbed his face with both hands. "Ash," she screamed, not telepathically, but with her voice. "Come back. You are Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town. You are human." She poured everything she had into that thought. Identity, structure, limitation. She forced the concept of being human back into his mind. Ash's eyes fluttered. The glow receded. The violent wind died down instantly. Gravity reasserted itself. He fell forward, dead weight. Sabrina caught him, buckling under the load, and they both crumpled to the floor of the ruined arena. Silence returned, heavy and thick with dust. For a long time, the only sound was their breathing. Ash's head rested on Sabrina's shoulder. She held him tight, her fingers tangled in his messy black hair. She was shaking. She had faced legendaries, spirits, and monsters. She had never felt anything like that. "Sabrina," Ash mumbled into her shirt. "I'm here," she said, her voice trembling. She didn't let go. She realized, with a jolt, that she didn't want to let go. His energy was addictive. Being that close to the source, it made her own powers sing. "Did I hurt you?" "No," she lied. She wiped the blood from her nose on her sleeve. "But you destroyed my floor." Ash let out a weak, breathless laugh. "Put it on my tab." Sabrina looked down at him. The fear was gone, replaced by a steely resolve. She understood now. The world champion wasn't just a strong trainer. He was a biological impossibility. And if he stayed out in the open, the world would tear him apart to see how he ticked. "You can't leave," she stated. It wasn't a request. Ash pulled back slightly, looking at her. His brown eyes were back, but deep within them, the purple flecks remained. "I can't stay. I'm a danger." "You're a beacon," she corrected. Every psychic on the continent probably felt that pulse. And if they felt it. Her eyes narrowed. Then they felt it. "Who?" "There are shadows in the Alliance, Ash. People who think gods should be vivisected, not worshipped." She helped him sit up. The intimacy of the moment lingered, a new tether connecting them. She had seen his soul, and he had broken her barriers. They were entangled now. "I will teach you," Sabrina said. "I will teach you how to build the dam. How to hide the signal. But until you can control it, you belong to me." Ash looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the concern beneath the cold mask. He nodded. "Okay. Orbit." The ionosphere. The black satellite drifted silently against the curve of the Earth. It bore no markings, no flag, just a sleek, jagged design that absorbed radar waves. Inside the control center of Project Null, buried deep beneath a mountain in Kalos, a screen flared red. Director Holloway stood watching the telemetry. He adjusted his rimless glasses, the reflection of the data scrolling across the lenses. "Report," he said softly. "Energy signature confirmed, sir," a technician replied, their fingers flying across a holographic keyboard. "Sector 4. Kanto. Saffron City. Magnitude 9. It matches the fossil resonance." Holloway smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had just found the missing piece of a puzzle he had been solving for 20 years. "The ancestor returns," Holloway mused, "and he's wearing a human skin." He turned to the shadowed figure standing in the corner of the room. A creature encased in armor, purple plating covering a humanoid form that twitched with restrained aggression. "Prepare the hunter unit," Holloway ordered. "And activate Subject Z. We need to secure the asset before he learns what he can really do." "Capture or kill?" the technician asked. Holloway looked back at the screen, at the pulsing red dot over Saffron City. "If he resists," Holloway said, "break his legs. But keep the brain intact. I need the DNA." Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2, The Maiden of the Tower. The flight to Hoenn was a blur of white noise and sedatives. Ash didn't sleep, not really. He drifted in a chemical haze Sabrina had concocted using sleep powder and her own hypnotic suggestion. It was the only way to keep his bio-signature low enough to bypass airport security. To the sensors, he was just a tired traveler. To anyone with a psychic sensitivity, he was a dormant volcano being smuggled in coach class. When they touched down in the battle frontier, the air was humid and salty. The battle tower pierced the skyline, a monolith of glass and steel reflecting the harsh tropical sun. "Keep the cloak tight," Sabrina murmured, walking a half step behind him. She looked less like a gym leader today and more like a bodyguard. Her usual ceremonial dress was replaced by practical travel gear, dark trench coat, boots, hair tied back. "And stop broadcasting. You're leaking anxiety like a broken faucet." "I'm trying," Ash gritted out. He adjusted his sunglasses. The world was too bright. Every color was saturated to the point of nausea. He could hear the hum of the maglev train 3 miles away. He could smell the ozone of a magneton training in the distance. "Why her?" Ash asked, keeping his voice low as they navigated the pristine plaza leading to the tower. "Because I am a scalpel," Sabrina said, her tone clinical. "I can cut your mind apart and put it back together, but I cannot teach you how to live with the noise. My power is domination. Yours is connection." She stopped at the foot of the tower steps. "Annabelle is an empath," Sabrina finished. "She doesn't control power. She feels it. If you want to stop drowning, she's the only one who can teach you how to swim." They didn't take the elevator. Sabrina simply placed a hand on Ash's shoulder, and the world twisted. Space folded in on itself, a sensation like being pulled through a straw, and then popped back into existence. They were in the salon. It was a high-ceilinged room at the top of the tower, filled with light and hanging plants. It smelled of lavender and tea. Standing by the window, looking out over the sprawling battlegrounds, was the salon maiden. Annabelle turned. She had grown since Ash last saw her. The purple hair was longer, framing a face that had lost its tomboyish roundness. She wore a tailored suit of lavender and black, an espion sitting calmly at her heel. She didn't smile. Her eyes locked onto Ash, and her breath hitched. "Ash?" She walked forward, ignoring Sabrina completely. She stopped 2 feet from him, her hand raising tentatively. "What is this?" Annabelle whispered. Her eyes scanned him, not seeing his clothes, but seeing the aura bleeding off him. "It's golden. It's terrifying." "It's a problem," Ash said, his voice rough. He took off his sunglasses. His eyes were tired, the pupils dilated. "I need help, Annabelle. I'm changing." Annabelle didn't ask questions. She didn't ask why the world champion was sneaking around like a fugitive. She simply closed the distance and placed her hand on his chest. The reaction was instant. For Ash, it was like stepping out of a blizzard into a warm bath. The chaotic noise in his head, the thoughts of the staff downstairs, the wild Pokemon outside, was suddenly baffled. Muffled. Annabelle acted as a grounding rod, channeling his excess static into herself and neutralizing it. For Annabelle, it was overwhelming. She gasped, her knees buckling. Sadness. Ancient, crushing sadness. An instinct. A desire to play, to hunt, to protect. It wasn't human emotion. It was the emotional spectrum of something that had watched stars die. "You aren't just an aura guardian anymore," Annabelle breathed, looking up at him. Her eyes were wide, shimmering with shared tears. "You're the source." "Can you stabilize him?" Sabrina asked, her arms crossed, leaning against a pillar. She looked jealous, though her face was stone. She couldn't do what Annabelle just did. Annabelle nodded slowly, stepping back but keeping a hand on Ash's arm. "I can teach him to filter. To build emotional walls, not just mental ones. But it will take time. Weeks." "We don't have weeks," Ash said. He looked at the window. "I don't think we even have hours." As if on cue, the glass of the salon exploded. It wasn't a projectile. It was a sonic frequency. A dark pulse tuned to a pitch that shattered tempered glass instantly. Shards rained down like diamonds. Ash moved before the glass hit the floor. He tackled Annabelle, spinning in midair to shield her with his body as they crashed behind a heavy oak desk. "Sabrina!" Ash yelled. Sabrina was already moving. She threw up a reflect barrier, a shimmering wall of pink light. 3 figures repelled through the broken window. They wore the same matte black armor as the men in the forest, but their gear was heavier. They carried staffs tipped with black crystals that pulsed with a negative energy. Target identified, the leader droned. His voice was mechanically amplified, suppressing psionic capabilities. The crystals on their staffs flared. Sabrina gasped, clutching her head. Her reflect barrier flickered and died. "They're jamming the frequency," she hissed, dropping to one knee. "It's artificial dark energy. I can't focus." The soldiers didn't wait. The leader leveled a weapon at the desk where Ash and Annabelle were pinned. It wasn't a gun. It was a cannon designed to fire concentrated blasts of nightshade. "Ash Ketchum. By order of the Global Alliance Security Council, you are to be detained for biological classification." Ash looked at Annabelle. She was terrified, clutching her espion who was hissing but cowering under the oppressive dark aura. Ash felt the fear. But underneath the fear, he felt the other thing. The anger. The helix. The DNA. It remembered being hunted. It remembered humanity's greed. "Stay down," Ash told Annabelle. He stood up. "Ash, don't. They'll kill you," Annabelle screamed. Ash walked out from behind the desk. He didn't have Pikachu. He had left him in the lower levels to rest. He was alone. "Detained?" Ash asked. He took a step toward the soldiers. The glass crunched under his boots. "You come into my friend's home. You break her windows. You threaten her life." "Fire," the leader commanded. A beam of black, ghost fire erupted from the cannon. It hit Ash square in the chest. Annabelle screamed. The smoke cleared. Ash was still standing. He hadn't used a barrier. He hadn't dodged. He had changed. His skin was no longer flesh. From his neck down, his body had turned into a smooth, gunmetal gray substance. It shone with a cold, metallic luster. Iron defense. But it wasn't a move commanded to a Pokémon. Ash had altered his cellular structure instantly, mimicking the properties of a steel type. The nightshade energy dissipated harmlessly across his metallic chest, grounding out. The soldiers froze. Their scanners went haywire. Target classification error. Type: steel, psychic, unknown. Ash looked at his own hand. It was heavy, made of living iron. He flexed his fingers, the metal grinding softly. He looked up. His eyes were no longer brown. They were pure, glowing silver. "My turn." Ash lunged. He was heavy now, weighing nearly 400 pounds of solid steel, but he moved with the thrust of a jet engine. He slammed into the leader. The impact sounded like a car crash. The soldier's armor shattered, and he was launched backward out the broken window, falling toward the plaza below. The other two soldiers panicked. They switched their staffs to flamethrower mode. Jets of fire engulfed Ash. He didn't care. The heat turned his steel skin red hot, but he felt no pain, only a distant warmth. He walked through the fire, a juggernaut of retribution. He grabbed the second soldier by the throat. The heat from Ash's hand melted the man's tactical collar instantly. "Who sent you?" Ash's voice sounded like grinding gears. "Director Holloway." The man choked out, eyes bulging. "Project Null." Ash tossed him aside like a ragdoll. He turned to the third man, who dropped his weapon and backed away, hands up. "Leave," Ash commanded. The soldier scrambled out the window, activating his rappel line in a panic. Ash stood in the center of the ruined room, his body glowing with residual heat. Slowly, the metal began to recede. The gray softened, turning back to peach. The weight vanished. He stumbled, the sudden return to normal biology leaving him dizzy. Annabelle was there instantly, catching him. You turned into steel," she whispered, touching his face. Her fingers came away with soot. "Ash, that's impossible. Humans can't. Ditto can't even hold a form that complex while taking damage." Sabrina pulled herself up from the floor. She looked at Ash with a mix of awe and terror. He didn't just transform. He adapted. He became the countertype to the threat. Ash coughed, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The transformation had taken a toll. His insides felt like they had been put through a blender. "They found us too fast," Ash said, leaning heavily on Annabelle. "The Alliance. The police. They're involved." "Not the whole Alliance," Annabelle said firmly. Her shock was replaced by the steely resolve of a frontier brain. "This Project Null, if they're using unauthorized dark tech, they're a rogue faction. but they have clearance. Which means we can't trust the gyms, Sabrina added. Or the Pokemon centers. They'll have our tracking data. Ash looked at the two women. You two need to stay here. Say I attacked you. Say I went crazy. You'll be safe. Annabelle grabbed his collar and pulled him down to her level. Her violet eyes blazed. Don't you dare, she hissed. You shielded me with your own body. You think I'm going to let you walk out that door alone? I'm a frontier brain, Ash. I don't hide from challenges. She turned to her Espeon. Teleport us to the lower levels. Get Pikachu. We're leaving. Leaving? Ash asked. Where? Sabrina walked over, dusting glass off her coat. She picked up one of the dropped enemy weapons, examining the mechanics. Unova, Sabrina said. If we're going to fight a war against the government, we need firepower. Raw, destructive firepower. Ash wiped the blood from his mouth. Caitlin. Caitlin, Sabrina confirmed. She's the only one strong enough to cover your energy signature with her own. Plus, she hates the Alliance bureaucracy more than I do. Annabelle signaled her Espeon. The room began to warp. One condition, Annabelle said, holding Ash's hand tight as the psychic energy enveloped them. No more tanking hits. If we do this as a team. You protect us, we protect you. Ash squeezed her hand back. The golden warmth in his chest flared, not in anger this time, but in gratitude. Deal. The world twisted, and the salon was empty. Project. Null headquarters. Kalos. Director Holloway watched the feed from the soldier's helmet cam. He watched the boy turn into living steel. He watched the fire wash over him harmlessly. He paused the video on the frame where Ash's eyes were glowing silver. Magnificent, Holloway whispered. He turned to the massive glass containment tank behind him. Inside, suspended in green liquid, was a creature of purple metal and cannon weaponry. It was dormant, cables drilled into its spine. The subject demonstrates type-shifting capabilities, Holloway dictated to his recorder. Current hypothesis. He is accessing the genetic library of every Pokemon species. He is a living Pokedex. He walked over to a console and typed in a command. Activate asset. Genesect. Mission. Hunt. Let's see how he handles a predator that was built to kill gods, Holloway said. The lights in the tank turned red. The Genesect's eyes flashed open. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. Glass Cannon's Undella town was usually a paradise of sun-bleached villas and sparkling ocean views. Today, it looked like the inside of a washing machine. Black clouds bruised the horizon, low and heavy. The sea wasn't just choppy, it was behaving incorrectly. Waves would rise 40 feet in the air and then freeze, suspended like sculptures of jagged glass, before shattering into mist. The air pressure was so intense it made teeth ache. She's having a nightmare, Sabrina said. She stood on the cliff overlooking the private estate district. The wind whipped her trench coat around her legs. Beside her, Annabelle held a hand to her forehead, wincing. It's not just a nightmare, Annabelle corrected, her voice tight. It's a panic attack broadcast at 80 megahertz. How is the town not evacuated? People think it's just freak weather, Ash said. He stepped forward to the cliff's edge. He looked worse than he had in Hoenn. His skin was pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold wind. The golden energy inside him was reacting to the ambient chaos of Undella. His fingers twitched, sparking with involuntary discharge. She's leaking enough psychic energy to warp the local gravity, Ash noted. He didn't check a scanner. He tasted the air. It tasted like ozone and terrified adrenaline. If she wakes up wrong, she'll level the coastline. That's why we're here, Sabrina said. We need a cannon. She's the biggest one in the world. They moved down the winding path toward the largest villa. It was a sprawling mansion of white stone, currently surrounded by a perimeter of floating debris, garden benches, potted plants, and iron gates orbiting the house in a slow, threatening ring. Ash walked through the gate. A heavy iron planter hurled itself at his head. He didn't flinch. He didn't even look at it. He simply pushed his aura outward, a gentle sphere of rejection. The planter bounced off the invisible bubble and fell harmlessly to the grass. Show off, Sabrina muttered, though there was relief in her voice. They reached the heavy oak doors. Before Ash could knock, the doors swung open with enough force to crack the hinges. Standing in the foyer was a man in an impeccable butler's uniform, though his tie was askew and he looked like he hadn't slept in a week. A Gallade stood beside him, blades extended, trembling with exertion as it tried to hold back the invisible pressure radiating from the upper floors. "The villa is closed," the butler shouted over the howling wind inside the house. "Lady Caitlin is indisposed. Leave before you get crushed." "Duroc," Ash said. The butler froze. He peered through the gloom of the hallway. "Ash, Ketchum?" "We're here to wake her up," Ash said, stepping across the threshold. "You can't," Duroc pleaded, blocking the way. "She went into the sleep cycle 3 days ago to contain a flare-up. If you wake her now, without the dampeners, she'll destroy the house. She can't control it." "I know," Ash said softly. "That's why I'm going in." "Going in?" Duroc blinked. "Into the room? Into her head?" Duroc looked at the three of them, the psychic gym leader, the frontier brain, and the world champion who was currently glowing with a faint, eerie light. The butler lowered his arms. He looked defeated. "She's in the master suite," Duroc whispered. "Please, bring her back." The upstairs corridor felt like walking underwater. The air was thick, viscous with psychic residue. Paintings rattled against the walls. A vase exploded as they walked past it. Ash stopped at the double doors of the bedroom. He turned to Sabrina and Annabelle. "Hold the perimeter," Ash said. "If I screw this up and she releases a shockwave, contain it. Don't let it hit the town." "And if she tries to fry your brain?" Sabrina asked, her eyes dark. Ash offered a small, tired smile. "Then you guys get to interview for a new leader." He pushed the doors open and slipped inside. The room was a vortex. Furniture swirled in a violent cyclone around the center of the room. In the eye of the storm, floating 4 feet above the silk sheets of a massive bed, was Caitlin. She looked like a porcelain doll suspended in water. Her massive volume of blonde hair fanned out around her, defying gravity. Her eyes were closed, her face twisted in a grimace of concentration. She wasn't sleeping restfully, she was fighting a war in her dreams. Ash took a breath. He reached deep into that new, terrifying well of power in his gut. He didn't draw on the steel of his defense or the force of his aggression. He reached for the fluidity, the adaptability of the ancestor. He walked into the cyclone. A heavy vanity mirror whipped around and smashed into his shoulder. Ash grunted, bone bruising, but he didn't stop. He couldn't use a shield. It would be interpreted as an attack. He had to be soft. He reached the bed. He climbed up, kneeling on the mattress beneath her floating form. "Okay, Sleeping Beauty," Ash whispered. "Let's see what the problem is." He reached up and grabbed her hand. Snap. The world dissolved. The mindscape, it wasn't a room. It was a frozen ocean. Ash stood on the surface of a dark, roiling sea. The sky above was shattered glass, jagged shards of purple and black raining down constantly. Gigantic waves rose up. Tsunamis of pure emotion. But they didn't crash. They just hung there, threatening to fall. In the distance, a small figure sat on a throne made of ice, huddled with her knees to her chest. Ash walked across the water. The surface rippled under his boots. "Go away." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It was the voice of a frightened child amplified by a stadium speaker. A massive wave unfroze and crashed down toward Ash. He didn't run. He looked at the wave, analyzed its frequency, frustration, fear, isolation, and adjusted his own soul to match it. He became the water. The wave hit him, but instead of crushing him, it passed through him. He washed away and reformed a second later, closer to the throne. "I said go away. I'll hurt you." Caitlin looked up. Her eyes were glowing voids of white energy. She raised a hand, and the shards of sky turned into spears, aiming directly at his heart. "You can't hurt me, Caitlin," Ash said. He kept walking. "I'm not fragile." "Everyone breaks," she screamed. "Everything I touch breaks." She threw the sky at him. Thousands of glass spears rained down. It was a bombardment that would have leveled a mountain. Ash stopped walking. He closed his eyes. He imagined a shield. Not a barrier of force, but a barrier of acceptance. A psychic sponge. Mew. The pink bubble formed around him. The spears hit it and didn't shatter. They dissolved. They turned into bubbles, into petals, into soft rain. Ash converted the destructive intent into harmless energy. He opened his eyes. He was standing at the foot of her ice throne. Caitlin stared at him. her mouth slightly open. The storm around them paused. She had never seen anyone just absorb her outbursts. People ran, or they put up walls that eventually cracked. "Who are you?" she whispered. Ash stepped up to the throne. He didn't look like a trainer. In this place, his avatar shimmered with an iridescent coating, a tail of energy flickering behind him. "I'm someone who knows what it's like," Ash said. He sat down on the ice next to her. "To have too much inside. To be scared that if you let go, the world ends." He held out his hand. Caitlin looked at it. Her hand was trembling, wreathed in violet sparks of destruction. "If I touch you, I might burn you," she warned. "Try me." She reached out. Her fingers brushed his palm. The reaction was nuclear. Her chaotic, jagged violet energy poured into him. It was violent, screaming to be let out. Ash didn't block it. He took it. He became the ground wire. He gasped, his back arching in the mindscape. It hurt. It felt like swallowing fire. But he forced his own energy, the golden, ancient calm of the ancestor, to wrap around her storm. He braided their energies together. He took the sharp edges of her power and smoothed them down. He acted as a filter, purifying the output until the violent storm became a rhythmic, powerful pulse. The frozen ocean melted. The dark sky cleared, revealing a calm, starry night. Caitlin looked around, stunned. The noise was gone. For the first time in years, her head was quiet. She looked at Ash. He was still holding her hand, breathing hard, but he was smiling. "See?" he rasped. "Didn't break." Caitlin launched herself at him. She didn't attack. She hugged him. She buried her face in his neck, sobbing, not from sadness, but from the sheer, overwhelming relief of being held by someone who wouldn't shatter. "You're warm," she mumbled. "And you're loud," Ash teased gently, stroking her hair. "Time to wake up, Caitlin. We have work to do." The real world, the floating furniture dropped to the floor. The wind died instantly. Ash opened his eyes. He was lying on the bed. Caitlin collapsed on top of him. Her hair was spread across his chest like a golden blanket. She lifted her head. Her eyes were no longer glowing white. They were their natural, sharp blue. But they looked at Ash with a new intensity, a possessive hunger. "You," she whispered, tracing his jawline with a finger. "You stopped it." Ash groaned, sitting up and helping her move. "I just helped you steer." The doors burst open. Sabrina and Annabelle rushed in, Duroc close behind. They stopped. They saw Caitlin sitting on the bed, looking composed, regal, and terrifyingly calm. They saw Ash sitting beside her, looking like he'd gone 10 rounds with a Machamp. "Lady Caitlin," Duroc cried, rushing to her side. Is the episode over?" Caitlin stood up. She smoothed her nightgown. She looked at her hands, flexing her fingers. Sparks of pink psychic energy danced between them, controlled, precise, potent. "The episode is finished, Duroc," she said. Her voice was cool, but there was a sharp edge to it. She turned to Ash. "He stabilized my core frequency. I can feel the limiters are gone, but I'm in control." She looked at Sabrina and Annabelle. "You brought him to me." "We need you," Sabrina said bluntly. "We're going to war." "War?" Caitlin raised an eyebrow. "There's a faction hunting us," Annabelle explained quickly. "Project Null. They're targeting high-level psychics and anomalies. They have technology that dampens our powers. We need someone who can punch through it." Caitlin laughed. It was a low, dangerous sound. She walked over to the window and looked out at the storm clouds, which were finally beginning to break. "I have spent half my life sleeping because the world is made of cardboard," Caitlin said. "I have to be careful not to break the teacups. I have to be careful not to crush the challengers." She turned back to them, her eyes locked onto Ash. "But you're not cardboard, are you?" Ash stood up, steadying himself on the bedpost. "No." "Good," Caitlin said. She walked over to him, standing on her tiptoes to whisper in his ear. "Because I'm tired of being careful. If there's a war, I want to break something." She pulled back, a smirk playing on her lips. "I'm in. But you're riding with me, Ketchum. You're my anchor now. Don't wander off." Ash felt a chill go down his spine. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was the realization that he had just leashed a tiger, and the only way to keep it from biting was to keep his hand in its mouth. I'm not going anywhere, Ash promised. The Unova coastline, midnight. The storm had cleared, leaving a heavy fog over the ocean. A black transport chopper, silent and running without lights, hovered 50 feet above the water, 3 miles out from Undella town. Inside the bay, Director Holloway watched the thermal feed. He saw the heat bloom in the villa die down. The anomaly has stabilized the Elite Four member, Holloway noted into his comms. He is building a coalition. Efficient. He turned to the rear of the chopper. The cargo ramp lowered, revealing the dark, churning water below. Standing on the edge of the ramp was a creature of nightmare. It was insectoid, tall and encased in purple metallic armor. A massive cannon was mounted on its back. Its eyes were cold, red digital slits. Subject Z. Genesect. Status. Online. Directive. Eliminate. The target has recruited psychic support, Holloway said to the machine. They will rely on barriers. They will rely on mental attacks. The Genesect chittered, a sound like grinding metal. It raised a claw. You have the drive, Holloway said. Equip the insect plate data. Show them that even gods have predators. The Genesect stepped off the ramp. It didn't fall. Its engines ignited, a high-pitched whine of thrusters. It hovered for a second, then accelerated toward the shore, breaking the sound barrier in a shockwave that flattened the waves below. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4. The apex predator. The Galar Wild area was a graveyard of weather. One moment, the sun was scorching the rolling hills. The next, a hailstorm was bruising the earth. It was a place of untamed, chaotic energy. The perfect place to hide a signal that was already chaotic by nature. They had set up camp in the ruins of an old watchtower near the Lake of Outrage. The stone walls provided shelter from the biting wind, and the high concentration of dragon-type energy in the area acted as natural interference against scanners. Ash sat on the edge of the ruin, his legs dangling over a 50-foot drop into the foggy lake below. He wasn't wearing his hat. He was staring at his hands. Stop doing that, Sabrina's voice cut through the mist. She was sitting by a small, smokeless fire, stirring a pot of stew with her mind. Stop checking to see if your fingerprints are still there. Ash clenched his fists. They feel different. The ridges, they feel smoother. Your cellular regeneration is accelerating, Annabelle said softly. She was brushing her espion, but her violet eyes were fixed on Ash's back. You cut your arm on a jagged rock 3 hours ago. There isn't even a scar now. It's efficient, Caitlin murmured from her sleeping bag. She was buried under 3 blankets, refusing to interact with the cold. Embrace it. Being human is exhausting. You have to eat so much. You have to sleep. Being energy is easier. Ash laughed, but it was a dry, humorless sound. I don't want to be energy, Caitlin. I want to be able to hold a cup without worrying I'll crush it into dust. He hopped down from the ledge. He moved too smoothly. There was no impact, no shifting of weight. He just arrived on the ground. We can't stay here, Ash said, pacing. Holloway knows I recruited you. He knows the pattern. He'll figure out we need a place with high ambient energy to mask my signature. Let him come, Caitlin yawned, sitting up and letting the blankets pool around her waist. I'm bored. I could use target practice. You don't understand. Ash stopped pacing. He looked at them. 3 of the most powerful women on the planet. You're used to battles where there are rules. Where the referee waves a flag and someone recalls their Pokemon. These people. They use dark energy synthesized in a lab. They don't want to win. They want to erase. Suddenly, Pikachu's ears twitched. He was sleeping on Ash's backpack, but he woke instantly, the fur on his spine standing straight up. Pika. Ash felt it a split second later. It wasn't a sound. It was a void. A sudden, terrifying absence of sensation. The ambient dragon energy of the lake didn't just disappear, it was eaten. The fog below the watchtower turned black. Masks up, Sabrina ordered, kicking the fire out with a telekinetic shove. Too late, Ash whispered. From the darkness of the lake, shadows began to rise. They weren't Pokemon. They were silhouettes. Humanoid shapes made of inky, roiling smoke, with single blue eyes burning in their chests. Darkrai? Annabelle gasped, recalling her own battles in the frontier. But there are dozens of them. Clones, Ash realized. Artificial constructs. They aren't real, but their attacks are. The shadows drifted over the lip of the ruin. They didn't scream. They hissed, a sound like steam escaping a vent. Caitlin, clear the field, Ash commanded. Caitlin didn't need to be told twice. Her boredom evaporated. She raised a hand, and the air pressure in the ruin dropped. Moonblast. It wasn't a move from a Pokémon. She channeled the fairy energy through her own body, magnifying it. A sphere of blinding pink light erupted from her palm, slamming into the phalanx of shadows. It should have vaporized them. Instead, the shadows simply opened. They absorbed the light. The pink energy turned black, rotting instantly upon contact. Caitlin's eyes widened. They're immune. That's not possible. Moonblast is fairy type. Dark is weak to it. They aren't just dark type, Ash shouted, grabbing Annabelle and pulling her back as a shadow lunged. They're null type. They're designed to absorb energy. A beam of black ice shot from one of the shadows. Sabrina threw up a light screen, but the beam shattered it like sugar glass, clipping her shoulder. She hissed in pain, clutching her arm. They adapt to psionic frequencies, Sabrina yelled. We can't block them. Then, the heavy sound of thrusters cut through the hissing. Above them, hovering in the storm clouds, was the purple nightmare. The Genesect. Its red eyes locked onto Ash. The cannon on its back whined as it charged. Target acquired. Ancestor. Run, Ash roared. We're not leaving you, Annabelle screamed, sending her espion to Psybeam a shadow that was getting too close. You have to. Ash turned to them. His eyes were glowing again, the pupils narrowing into slits. You're psychic types. This is a kill team designed specifically to hunt you. You're just batteries to them. He was right. Ash knew it. This squad, the Genesect, Bug, Steel, and the Null Shadows, was a hard counter to his team. If they stayed, they would be slaughtered. Go to the Hammerlock entrance, Ash ordered, his voice taking on that dual-tone resonance of the Mew voice. I will draw them into the wild area. Ash, Caitlin started. Ash didn't wait. He didn't use a move. He simply exploded with power. He released a shockwave of pure kinetic force, not to hit the enemies, but to launch himself. He flew backward, off the cliff, diving into the foggy abyss of the lake. The Genesect's head snapped, tracking him. It ignored the girls. The Null Shadows turned, their hunger focused on the massive energy spike falling into the dark. The enemy swarm turned and dove after him. Ash hit the water, but he didn't sink. He skimmed the surface, his boots glowing with blue psychic traction. He was moving at 80 miles per hour, tearing across the lake of outrage. Behind him, the water erupted. The Genesect was gaining. It flew in a low hover, kicking up a rooster tail of spray. Technoblast. A beam of purple energy fired from the cannon. Ash didn't look back. He felt the heat. He juked left, his body moving with impossible fluidity. The beam vaporized the water where he had been a microsecond before, creating a cloud of superheated steam. Ash dove into a dense patch of forest on the far bank. He needed cover. He needed to separate the pack. He landed in the mud, sliding to a halt behind a massive oak tree. He was panting. His heart was hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Fear. The emotion washed over him, but strangely, it wasn't paralyzing. As the Mew DNA overrode his human adrenal system, fear stopped tasting like panic. It tasted like fuel. He looked at his hands. The fingernails were gone, replaced by short, sharp claws. His canine teeth felt longer, sharper against his tongue. The forest went silent. The crickets stopped. The wind died. They were here. Ash closed his eyes. He expanded his senses. 5 Null Shadows. 1 Genesect. The shadows were closing in from the ground, moving through the trees like oil. The Genesect was above, scanning with thermal. Okay, Ash whispered. A low growl rumbled in his chest, a sound no human vocal cord could produce. You want to play tag? He vanished. He didn't teleport. He used extreme speed. He appeared behind the first Null Shadow. Before the construct could react, Ash didn't use a psychic blast. He used Fire Punch. But he didn't punch. He drove his clawed hand into the Shadow's chest and ignited the air inside it. Boom. The Shadow detonated from the inside out. Ash was already moving before the smoke cleared. Two more shadows lunged at him. Ash dropped to all fours, moving like a feral beast. He dodged a swipe, leapt off a tree trunk, and landed on the back of the second shadow. Thunderfang. He bit down on the shadow's neck. Electricity, yellow and primal, surged from his jaw. The construct shrieked. A digital, glitching scream, and dissolved. 3 down. Suddenly, the trees around him exploded. The Genesect had found him. It crashed through the canopy, landing with a heavy metallic thud that shook the earth. It stood 7 feet tall, the cannon on its back glowing red. Adaptation detected. The machine's voice grated. Switching drive, douse. The drive in its back shifted from purple to blue. Water type. To counter the fire moves Ash had just used. You think I have a type? Ash laughed. He stood up. He wasn't hunched anymore. He stood tall, his arms hanging loose at his sides. His clothes were torn, revealing skin that shimmered with a faint, pink force field. I'm every type, Ash said. The Genesect fired. A high-pressure jet of water, capable of cutting through steel, screamed toward him. Ash didn't dodge. Grass not. Roots erupted from the earth, not to block the water, but to snag the Genesect's legs. The machine stumbled, its aim thrown off by a fraction of an inch. The water jet sliced Ash's cheek, drawing blood, but missed his vitals. Ash capitalized. He sprinted forward, but as he ran, he changed. His aura shifted from green to brown, fighting type. He leapt, clearing 10 feet in the air. He cocked his fist back. Close combat. He slammed into the metal chassis of the Genesect. It wasn't one hit. It was a barrage. Bam 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 bam. His fists moved faster than the eye could follow, denting the purple armor, cracking the optical sensors. The Genesect staggered back, its gyros whining. It tried to bring the cannon to bear at point-blank range. Ash saw the cannon glowing. He didn't retreat, he didn't shield. The Predator woke up fully. Break it. Ash grabbed the barrel of the cannon with both hands. The metal was searing hot, charging up for a blast that would vaporize him at this range. Ash didn't care. No, Ash snarled. He pulled. His muscles screamed. The veins in his neck bulged. Golden energy flooded his system, reinforcing his bones, turning his tendons into titanium cables. Crunch. The sound was sickening. It was the sound of high-grade military alloy tearing like wet paper. Ash ripped the cannon clean off the Genesect's back. Sparks showered down like fireworks. Leaking hydraulic fluid sprayed over Ash's face. The Genesect let out a distorted, mechanical wail. It flailed, trying to strike him with its claws. Ash didn't stop. He used the severed cannon as a club. He swung it with telekinetic-assisted force. Wham! The Genesect's head caved in. The red light in its eyes flickered and died. The massive machine collapsed into the mud, twitching once, then falling silent. Ash stood over the wreckage. He was breathing in jagged, wet gasps. He dropped the twisted metal cannon. He looked down at himself. He was covered in black oil and his own blood, but the blood wasn't red. It was gold. Thick, luminous gold ichor dripped from the cut on his cheek and his knuckles. It glowed in the dark, casting an eerie light on the dead machine. Ash. The voice was small. Terrified. Ash whipped around, a snarl still on his lips. His eyes were fully dilated, glowing purple-blue, showing no whites. Annabelle stood at the edge of the clearing. Sabrina and Caitlin were behind her. They had followed him. They had watched him tear a cyborg apart with his bare hands. Ash froze. He saw the look on Annabelle's face. It wasn't love, it wasn't concern. It was horror. He blinked, and the purple glow faded slightly. The snarl dropped. He looked at his hands, clawed, bloody, alien. Ash's voice cracked. It sounded too deep. I told you to run. We couldn't, Caitlin whispered. She stepped out from behind Annabelle. She looked at the destroyed Genesect, then at Ash. She didn't look scared. She looked fascinated. You dismantled it. Ash took a step back, retreating into the shadows. Don't come closer. Ash, you're bleeding, Annabelle said, stepping forward despite her fear. She reached into her bag for a potion. It's not blood, Ash yelled. The psychic pressure flared, cracking a nearby tree. Look at it, it's gold. I'm not human anymore, Annabelle. I'm just biology. I'm just a weapon. He slumped against the tree, sliding down until he hit the mud. The adrenaline was fading, leaving him shaking. The pain of the transformation hit him all at once. His bones ached from the shifting density. Sabrina walked forward. She didn't offer comfort. She walked right up to him, kneeling in the mud, ruining her expensive boots. She took his hand, the one covered in golden ichor and oil. "You're not a weapon," Sabrina said firmly. She used a psychic pulse to clean his hand, wiping away the grime until only the golden cuts remained. "Weapons don't cry." Ash touched his face. He was crying. He hadn't realized it. "We have to go," Sabrina said, pulling him up. "Holloway lost his unit. He'll be blind for a few hours. We need to get to the tree." "The tree of beginning?" Ash asked weakly. "It's the only place that has your frequency," Sabrina said. "If you're becoming Mew, we need to go to the source. Maybe the tree can explain why." Annabelle moved to his other side, supporting his weight. Caitlin took point, her eyes scanning the forest for more threats, her expression hard. "Let's move," Caitlin said, "before the next wave hits." They walked into the darkness of the wild area. Ash Ketchum limped between them, leaving a trail of glowing golden droplets on the forest floor, marking the path of a god who was slowly dying of his own divinity. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5. Echoes of the Tree Rhoda was not a place found on modern GPS maps. It was a blank spot in the satellite data, a kingdom of mist and jagged peaks that sat outside the jurisdiction of the Pokémon League. To reach it, one had to know the magnetic frequency of the bedrock itself. Or, in Ash's case, one simply had to listen to the call. The stolen jeep rattled over the gravel road, kicking up dust that swirled in the twilight. Caitlin was driving, her hands gripping the wheel with a casual, terrifying confidence. She drove like she battled, aggressive, precise, and entirely unconcerned with safety regulations. Ash sat in the passenger seat, his head resting against the cool glass of the window. He was burning up. The golden ichor had stopped bleeding, scabbing over into shimmering metallic patches on his skin, but the heat inside him hadn't faded. It felt as though he had swallowed a star. Every beat of his heart sent a pulse of high-voltage energy through his nervous system. "We're crossing the perimeter," Sabrina announced from the back seat. She was meditating, her eyes closed, monitoring the ambient psychic noise. "The air just changed. The density of aura here, it's suffocating." "I remember," Annabelle whispered, looking out at the looming silhouette of the Tree of Beginning. It pierced the clouds, a massive, crystalline structure that looked less like geology and more like biology. "It feels like the place is watching us." Ash opened his eyes. They were hazy, the irises shifting color sluggishly between brown and that alien, luminescent pink. "It is," Ash rasped. "It knows I'm home." The jeep crested a ridge, and the road ended. Before them lay the canyon entrance to the tree. And standing guard, motionless as statues, were the Titans. Regirock, Regice, Registeel. They stood in a triangular formation, blocking the path. The ancient golems were usually dormant, but as the jeep approached, their braille pattern eyes lit up with blinding intensity. "Caitlin, stop," Annabelle warned. Caitlin slammed the brakes. The jeep skidded to a halt 50 feet from the giants. "Great," Caitlin sighed, cracking her knuckles. "Do we have to fight the furniture? I'm exhausted." "Don't attack," Ash ordered. He fumbled for the door handle, his coordination slipping. "They're just security." He stumbled out of the car. The mountain air was thin and cold, but Ash didn't feel it. He walked forward, his steps uneven. The Regi trio shifted. The sound of grinding stone and screeching metal echoed off the canyon walls. Regirock raised a massive stone arm, ready to crush the intruder. "Ash!" Sabrina yelled, scrambling out of the car. Ash didn't stop. He raised his hand, the one still stained with gold. He didn't fire an attack. He didn't put up a shield. He simply projected a feeling. Identification. He pushed his aura outward, not as a weapon, but as a keycard. He showed them the shape of his soul. The double helix. The origin. The pressure in the canyon vanished instantly. Regirock's arm froze. The golem's lights flashed rapidly. A binary code of confusion and recognition. Slowly, with the groaning weight of tectonic plates moving, the Titan lowered its arm. Then, it knelt. Regice and Registeel followed suit. The legendary guardians of the tree, beings that had fought gods in the past, bowed their heads to the boy in the torn t-shirt. They recognize him, Annabelle breathed, standing by the Jeep's hood. They aren't guarding the tree from him. They're guarding it for him. Ash walked past them without a word. He was drawn to the tree like a moth to a flame. The closer he got, the more the pain in his body subsided, replaced by a strange, vibrating hum. Inside the tree of beginning, the laws of physics were merely suggestions. The interior was a labyrinth of translucent crystal veins, glowing with a soft, blue-green light. It wasn't rock. It was petrified organic matter. The antibodies, gelatinous blobs of red shape-shifting matter, slithered across the ceiling, ignoring the group. Ash led them deep into the central chamber. He moved with purpose now, the limp gone. The tree was feeding him. The ambient energy soaked into his pores, stabilizing his unraveling DNA. "It's beautiful," Annabelle whispered, her voice echoing in the vast cathedral-like space. "And sad." "Why is it so sad?" "Because it's a graveyard," Ash said. He stopped in the center of the main atrium. Below them, visible through the clear crystal floor, was the root system. But it wasn't roots, it was a library. Suspended in the crystal were fossils. Thousands of them. Kabutops, Omastar, Aerodactyl. But deeper, at the very core, was a single, tiny curl of pink energy frozen in amber. A Mew. Not the Mew, but a Mew. Ash fell to his knees, placing his hands on the floor. The contact sent a shockwave of light pulsing through the entire tree. "This is where it happened," Ash said, his voice distant, echoing with a multitude of tones. "The Great War. 3,000 years ago. Humanity tried to weaponize the aura of the planet. They built the ultimate weapon in Kalos." Sabrina stepped forward, her mind racing. The weapon as built? The one that ended the war? "It didn't just end the war," Ash said, tears streaming down his face. "It severed the connection. The weapon drained the life force of the world to fire. The legendaries. The gods. They realized humanity was a cancer. They left. Or they went to sleep." He pointed down at the frozen pink curl. "The ancestor stayed. It tried to shield the ecosystem. It used transform to become a planetary shield. It burned itself out." Ash looked up at the girls. His eyes were fully pink now, swirling with galaxies. The tree preserved the genetic code. It waited. It waited for humanity to produce a vessel capable of holding it. A human with enough empathy to bridge the gap, but enough stubbornness to survive the process. "You," Caitlin said softly. "Me," Ash confirmed. "I'm not just a reincarnation. I'm a reboot. Nature is trying to overwrite the human error." He gripped his chest. "But the file is too big. I'm overwriting myself. Ash Ketchum is being deleted." The silence that followed was heavier than the stone walls. "No," Annabelle dropped to her knees in front of him. She grabbed his shoulders, shaking him. "That's not how souls work, Ash. You aren't a computer program." "Look at me, Annabelle," Ash shouted. He held up his hands. The skin was turning translucent again, revealing the glowing gold veins underneath. "I'm losing the ability to taste food. I'm losing the need to sleep. Yesterday, I forgot my mother's name for 10 minutes. 10 whole minutes. I had to look at Pikachu to remember who I was." He pulled away from her, scrambling back against a crystal pillar. "You three need to leave. Once the integration is complete, I don't know what I'll be. I might not care about you anymore. I might look at you and just see biology. Just numbers." It was the most terrified he had ever sounded. Not of death, but of apathy. Of becoming a god who felt nothing. Caitlin walked over. She didn't kneel. She stood over him, her expression imperious. "Stand up," she commanded. Ash looked up, startled. "I said stand up, Ketchum." Slowly, Ash pushed himself up the pillar. Caitlin stepped into his personal space. "You think you're the only one who feels like a monster? You think you're the only one who scares people?" She took his hand, the dangerous one, and placed it on her own throat, right over her pulse. "I have destroyed buildings because I had a bad dream," Caitlin hissed. "I have hurt people I love because I couldn't control my temper. I am a walking natural disaster, and you." She leaned in, her blue eyes piercing his. "You are the only thing on this planet that doesn't break when I touch it. You are the only one who can hold my storm." "Caitlin. So you don't get to quit," she said fiercely. "You don't get to delete yourself." If the God part of you tries to take over, we will fight it. We will drag Ash Ketchum back by his hair if we have to. Sabrina stepped up on his left. Her presence was cool, logical, grounding. The mind is a construct, Sabrina said. I can build partitions. I can help you store your memories in a secure psychic vault, separate from the instinct. You won't forget your mother. I won't let you. Annabelle stepped up on his right. She wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head on his chest, listening to the terrified, powerful heart beating there. And the heart isn't biology, Annabelle whispered. It's connection. As long as you feel this, here, now, you're human. You can be a god and a man, Ash. You've always been impossible. Why stop now? Ash stood there, surrounded by them. The tactician, the empath, the destroyer. His harem. His court. He closed his eyes. He reached out with his senses. He felt Sabrina's iron will. He felt Caitlin's volatile fire. He felt Annabelle's deep, oceanic compassion. They were anchors. Heavy, stubborn, human anchors. The golden light in his veins dimmed. The frantic humming of the tree quieted. The panic receded. Ash let out a long, shuddering breath. He wrapped his arms around Annabelle and Caitlin, and nodded to Sabrina. Okay, Ash whispered. Okay. I'm staying. He opened his eyes. The pink was gone. They were brown again. Warm, familiar brown. Thank you, he said. Don't get sentimental, Caitlin muttered, though she didn't pull away. We just need you to win the war. Speaking of war, Sabrina said sharply, her head snapping toward the entrance of the chamber. We have company. Ash felt it a second later. It wasn't the mechanical coldness of the Genesect, and it wasn't the corrupted hunger of the Null Shadows. This was power. Pure, unadulterated, aristocratic power. It felt like a heavy cloak descending over the world. Ash pulled away from the girls. He walked to the center of the room, looking up at the high, open skylight of the tree. He's here, Ash said. Who? Annabelle asked, reaching for her Pokeballs. My shadow, Ash replied. A figure descended slowly from the skylight. He didn't need to flap wings or use jet thrusters. He lowered himself by simply willing gravity to obey him. Pale purple skin. A heavy, thick tail. A chest plate of bone. Eyes that burned with a cold, violet intellect. Mewtwo. The genetic Pokémon touched down silently on the crystal floor, 20 feet from Ash. He didn't look at the girls. To him, they were irrelevant. He looked only at Ash. The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. You look terrible, Mewtwo said. His telepathy was smooth, deep, and dripping with disdain. Nice to see you too, Ash replied, straightening his back. He didn't flinch. I was wondering when you'd show up. Mewtwo took a step forward. The air pressure in the room doubled. The crystals on the walls began to vibrate. I felt the pulse, Mewtwo said. The awakening. I thought. Perhaps a new legendary had been born. I came to see if it was a threat. Mewtwo's eyes narrowed. Instead, I find a human boy playing dress-up in my progenitor's skin. I didn't ask for this, Ash said. And that makes it worse, Mewtwo countered. His voice rose, laced with sudden, sharp anger. I was created in a lab. I was tortured. I was designed to be the strongest. I clawed my existence out of nothingness. Mewtwo raised a hand. A sphere of chaotic, dark psionic energy formed in his palm, Shadow Ball, but mastered to perfection. And you? You stumble into divinity by accident? You, a child who still travels with a rodent? Watch it, Ash warned, his own aura flaring gold. You are a mockery, Ash Ketchum, Mewtwo declared. You are unstable. You are dangerous. And you are unworthy of that DNA. The shadow ball grew larger, crackling with black lightning. Project Null is hunting us, Ash said. We have a common enemy, Mewtwo. I have no enemies, Mewtwo sneered. I have only obstacles, and right now, you are the biggest obstacle to the balance of this world. He didn't throw the ball. He crushed it in his hand, diffusing the energy into a shockwave that blew the girls back against the walls. Ash stood his ground, the gold aura shielding him. I will not let a human wield the power of the ancestor, Mewtwo stated cold. I will extract it from your corpse if I have to. For the sake of the planet. Ash sighed. He reached up and turned his hat backward. The brown in his eyes vanished. The slit pupils returned. The gold blood sang. If you want it, Ash said, his voice overlapping with the distortion of the Mew cry. Come and take it. Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6. The clones' envy. The first impact did not sound like an explosion. It sounded like a bell tolling, a deep, resonant gong that vibrated through the marrow of everyone present. Ash and Mewtwo collided in the center of the atrium. The floor, made of billion-year-old crystal, disintegrated instantly. A crater 30 feet wide opened up, sending shards of glass shooting outward like shrapnel. Sabrina didn't blink. She threw her hands forward, creating a layered reflect barrier in front of herself, Caitlin, and Annabelle. The crystal shards slammed into the pink wall, shattering into dust. They're moving too fast, Annabelle gasped, her eyes darting back and forth, trying to track the blurs. Inside the crater, physics was being rewritten. Mewtwo hovered inches off the ground, one hand extended. A beam of pure psychic force, psychic, poured from his palm, heavy enough to crush a tank. Ash wasn't blocking it. He was surfing it. Ash's body was encased in a shimmering, gelatinous blue aura. Protect. But he had shaped the barrier into a wedge, splitting Mewtwo's beam and letting it wash harmlessly past him. Is that all? Ash roared. He lunged through the stream of energy. As he moved, his arm changed. The skin hardened, turning rough and brown. Knuckles swelled into stone hammers. Rock slide. No stone edge. He swung a fist of living granite at Mewtwo's head. Mewtwo tilted his head to the left. The rock fist missed by a millimeter, the wind pressure cracking the air behind him. Crude, Mewtwo scoffed. He didn't punch back. He simply expanded his telekinetic field. Repel. A blast of force hit Ash in the chest, launching him backward. He flew across the atrium, smashing through a crystal pillar. The stone fell, burying him in tons of debris. He fights like a beast, Mewtwo noted, floating higher, looking down at the rubble with disdain. All instinct, no discipline. Don't get comfortable, Caitlin yelled from behind the barrier. The rubble exploded. Ash shot out of the debris, but he wasn't running, he was flying. Large, translucent wings, membranous and draconic, had sprouted from his shoulder blades. His eyes were slit, yellow and reptilian. Dragon dance. He was faster now. Much faster. He slammed into Mewtwo midair, tackling the clone. They spun violently, crashing through the ceiling of the Tree of Beginning, spiraling up into the cold night air of Rhoda. The sky over Rhoda. The cold wind whipped at them, but neither felt it. They were locked in a grapple of gravity and will. Mewtwo grabbed Ash by the throat. You mimic the dragon? Then burn like one. Mewtwo's eyes flashed red. Flamethrower. A torrent of white-hot fire erupted from Mewtwo's mouth at point-blank range. It engulfed Ash completely. The heat was blinding. But Ash didn't scream. Inside the inferno, Ash's skin shifted. Scales rippled across his chest. Red scales. Charizard DNA. He resisted the fire. He drank it. Ash grabbed Mewtwo's wrist, breaking the hold. He headbutted the clone. A brutal, physical strike that stunned the psychic master. I don't mimic, Ash shouted, his voice layered with a roar. I am. Ash spun, his tail, now long and heavy, slamming into Mewtwo's side. It wasn't a normal tail whip. It was Iron Tail, gleaming with metallic hardness. Clang. Mewtwo was knocked back, tumbling through the air. He righted himself instantly, his expression shifting from disdain to annoyance. You possess the library, Mewtwo said, wiping a smudge of purple blood from his lip. Every species. Every gene. You have access to the toolbox of creation. Mewtwo spread his arms. The clouds around them began to swirl. Violet lightning crackled in the stratosphere. But a toolbox is useless without an architect. Mewtwo clenched his fists. The sky warped. Psystrike. It was Mewtwo's signature. A move designed to bridge the gap between physical and special defense. It attacked the mind and the body simultaneously. Hundreds of violet orbs materialized around Ash. They hummed with a frequency that made Ash's teeth vibrate. Dodge this, Mewtwo whispered. He dropped his hands. The orbs fired. It was a bombardment. A rain of psychic artillery. Ash couldn't dodge. There were too many. He couldn't tank it. Psystrike ignored defense boosts. He had to adapt. Ash closed his eyes. The dragon wings dissolved. The stone skin faded. He reached deep into the helix. He found the one thing that could match Mewtwo. The mirror. Ash's body turned completely silver. He became liquid metal. Transform. Target. Mewtwo. Ash didn't turn into a copy of Mewtwo. He turned into the energy signature of Mewtwo. The Psystrike orbs hit him. They didn't explode, they absorbed. Ash's body rippled like a pond disturbed by rain. He took every ounce of the attack. The malice, the calculation, the raw power, and he swallowed it. He opened his eyes. They were glowing violet, the exact shade of Mewtwo's. What? Mewtwo gasped. Ash raised his hand, returned to sender. He didn't fire the orbs back. He fired a single, concentrated beam of Mewtwo's own energy. It hit the clone square in the chest. Mewtwo was blasted out of the sky. He fell like a meteor, trailing smoke, crashing down onto the rocky plateau near the tree's entrance. The plateau Ash landed a second later. He stumbled, the silver coating fading. He fell to one knee, coughing up golden blood. That had been too close. Copying a legendary's signature move was taxing. His cells felt like they were unzipping. Across the plateau, Mewtwo pulled himself out of a crater. One of the tubes on his neck was cracked, leaking blue fluid. He looked furious. "You stole my power," Mewtwo hissed, levitating again. "You thief." "I didn't steal it," Ash panted, standing up. "I shared it. That's the difference between us, Mewtwo." Ash walked forward. He didn't raise his fists, he lowered his guard. "You were built to be alone," Ash said, his voice quiet but carrying over the wind. "You were built to be the strongest, the apex, and that's lonely, isn't it?" Mewtwo froze. The gathering energy in his hand stalled. "I wasn't built," Ash continued. "I was born. I have a mom. I have friends. I have." He glanced back toward the tree, where he could feel the terrifyingly familiar signatures of Sabrina, Annabelle, and Caitlin watching from the entrance. "I have a pack." Ash tapped his own chest. "This power? The Mew DNA? It's not about being strong. It's about connection. Mew can learn every move because Mew understands every heart. It's empathy, Mewtwo. Not domination." Mewtwo stared at him. The clone's chest heaved. The anger was still there, but beneath it, confusion took root. "Empathy is a weakness," Mewtwo argued, though his voice lacked its earlier bite. "It makes you hesitate." "It makes me adaptable," Ash corrected, "because I'm not fighting for myself. I'm fighting for them, and that makes me infinite." Ash extended a hand. "Not to strike. To shake. We don't have to do this. Holloway is coming. He wants to put you back in a tube just as bad as he wants to dissect me." Mewtwo looked at the hand. He looked at the boy who was bleeding gold, whose eyes held the cosmos, but whose smile was stupidly, stubbornly human. Mewtwo lowered his hand. The violet glow faded. "You are." Mewtwo paused, searching for the word. Irritatingly persistent. "It's my best quality," Ash grinned weakly. "I do not ally with you," Mewtwo stated, floating down until his feet touched the grass. "But I will not destroy you today. If this Holloway seeks to cage us." Mewtwo's eyes narrowed. "Then perhaps I should demonstrate why that is a mistake." Ash let out a breath he had been holding. "Deal." The tension broke. The air settled. Then, the sky turned black. Not night. Black. A sphere of absolute darkness expanded silently over the plateau, swallowing the moon, the stars, and the light from the tree. "What?" Ash started. He fell. It wasn't a physical blow. It was like someone had reached inside him and switched off the main breaker. His legs went numb. The golden energy in his veins turned to sludge. "My power." Mewtwo gasped, dropping to one knee. He clutched his head. "It's draining." Null field. A voice amplified by speakers echoed from the dark sky. "Density, 100%. Searchlights, harsh, blinding xenon beams, cut through the darkness. They pinned Ash and Mewtwo to the ground. A massive airship descended from the clouds. It wasn't a sleek transport like before. This was a dreadnought. The hull was emblazoned with the project Null insignia. And hanging beneath it, suspended in a containment field, was a glowing red cocoon. Ash's eyes widened. He recognized that energy. It felt like death. It felt like the end of all things. Yveltal. "They have a cocoon," Ash choked out, trying to stand but failing. They're using Yveltal's dormant energy as a dampener. Target secured, Director Holloway's voice boomed. From the ship, drop pods launched. They slammed into the plateau, releasing squads of the elite Null troopers, the ones with the dark energy staffs. But they didn't go for Ash, they went for the tree entrance. No, Ash screamed. He tried to summon a move. Thunderbolt, Hyper Beam, anything. Nothing happened. The Yveltal field was canceling all life force energy in the area. He was just a boy. A tired, injured boy. At the tree entrance, Sabrina, Annabelle, and Caitlin ran out. Ash! Annabelle cried. She tried to run to him, but a Null trooper fired a containment net. It wrapped around her, shocking her with high-voltage electricity. She screamed and fell. Annabelle! Caitlin roared. She raised her hand to summon a psychic blast, but nothing came out. She stared at her hands in horror. My power, it's gone. A trooper struck Caitlin from behind with a rifle butt. She crumpled. Sabrina didn't try to fight. She realized the tactical situation instantly. She grabbed her Pokeball. Alakazam, teleport Ash. Get him out. She threw the ball. Alakazam materialized. But the field was too strong. Alakazam flickered, its spoons bending, and then it was forced back into the ball by the dampening pressure. Capture confirmed, a trooper reported. He grabbed Sabrina by her hair, forcing her to her knees next to the unconscious Annabelle and Caitlin. Ash dragged himself across the grass. He was crying. Let them go. It's me you want. Take me. Director Holloway walked down the ramp of the ship. He was flanked by two new Genesect units, one red, one blue. He walked over to Ash. He looked down at the world champion, who was clawing at the dirt, powerless. I don't just want you, Mr. Ketchum, Holloway said smoothly. He adjusted his glasses. I want the set. He gestured to the girls. The anchor. The battery. The tactician. You built a lovely support system to keep your sanity. If I take them away. Holloway smiled cruelly. Then you become the monster I need to justify my funding. He turned to the troopers. Load the females onto the ship. Leave the asset here. Leave him? A trooper asked. He's broken, Holloway said, kicking dirt into Ash's face. And the clone is neutralized. Without his anchors, the boy will destabilize. He'll destroy half the continent trying to find them. And then, the world will beg us to kill him. Holloway looked at Mewtwo, who was paralyzed on the ground, glaring with impotent rage. A pity, clone. You were almost interesting. Holloway turned and walked back to the ship. The troopers dragged the girls away. Ash watched Annabelle's limp hand trailing in the dust. He watched Caitlin being carried like a doll. He watched Sabrina look back at him, her eyes wide with a final, silent message. Survive. The ramp closed. The ship ascended. The Yveltal field remained for a moment longer, pinning Ash to the earth, forcing him to watch as the lights of the ship faded into the clouds. Then, the field disengaged. The power rushed back into Ash. The golden heat returned. The connection to the tree flared. But it was too late. Ash stood up. He didn't scream. He didn't cry out. The silence on the plateau was absolute. Mewtwo stood up slowly, clutching his side. He looked at the sky, then at Ash. They took them, Mewtwo stated. Ash turned around. His eyes were gone. They were just pools of glowing, white light. The air around him began to crackle. The grass withered and died. The rocks began to float, then disintegrate into dust. Mewtwo, Ash said. His voice didn't sound like Ash, it sounded like a choir of ghosts. Yes. Mewtwo replied, stepping back cautiously. I need to learn a move, Ash said. Which one? Ash looked at the empty sky. Judgment. Chapter 6 End. Chapter 7. The God Slayer. The Kalos Badlands were a jagged scar on the face of the region. Miles of red rock, geysers, and twisted canyons where nothing grew. In the center of this desolation sat the Citadel. To the public, it was a geothermal research station. To the Global Alliance, it was a black site prison for S-class threats. To Project Null, it was a butcher shop. Inside the command center, the alarm wasn't a siren. It was a heartbeat, a low, rhythmic thrumming of the red emergency lights. Report. Holloway's voice came over the intercom. He was safe in the inner sanctum, deep underground. Perimeter breach in Sector 1, the tactical officer screamed, his voice cracking. We have visuals on. Oh God. Is it the boy? It's not just the boy, sir, it's the clone. They're walking through the minefield. On the main screen, the feed showed the outer gates. They were made of reinforced titanium, designed to withstand a Tyranitar's rampage. In the video, a figure walked out of the dust. Ash Ketchum. He wasn't running. He wasn't crouching. He walked with the casual, terrifying indifference of a storm front. Floating just behind his right shoulder, arms crossed, was Mewtwo. A tank, an automated heavy assault vehicle, swiveled its turret toward them. The cannon flashed. A high-explosive shell screamed toward Ash. Ash didn't break stride. He flicked his wrist, psychic. The shell stopped in midair. It spun 180 degrees, it fired back. The tank vanished in a fireball of twisted metal. Open fire. The officer screamed. All units, suppression protocol Omega. The courtyard, the air smelled of sulfur and burning diesel. They have established a killbox, Mewtwo noted calmly. He drifted 10 feet in the air, his eyes scanning the ramparts where dozens of null troopers were taking aim. Dark energy dampeners are active. Efficiency is reduced by 30%. Don't care, Ash said. His voice was a dry rasp. He hadn't spoken a full sentence since the girls were taken. He was just a vessel of cold, directed intent. The ramparts lit up. Beams of dark energy and heavy ballistic fire rained down. Ash looked up. His eyes flashed blue. Rain dance. But it wasn't a gentle shower. The clouds above the citadel instantly convulsed, turning bruise black. A deluge of water hammered down, heavy enough to bruise skin. Why rain? Mewtwo asked, deflecting a sniper round with a barrier. Conduction, Ash replied. Ash snapped his fingers. Thunder. He didn't cast it at a target, he cast it at the wet ground. A pillar of yellow lightning, thick as a redwood tree, slammed into the flooded courtyard. The water acted as a massive conductor. The electricity arc diffused instantly, covering the entire square mile in a web of high-voltage death. The electronics of the citadel fried. The automated turrets sparked and died. The null troopers on the metal ramparts screamed as their suits short-circuited, locking them in place. Ash kept walking. The lightning danced over his skin, harmless as a summer breeze. Efficient, Mewtwo conceded. They reached the blast doors, 5 feet of tungsten steel. Shall I? Mewtwo asked, raising a hand. No, Ash said. I need to knock. Ash pulled his fist back. His arm rippled. The skin turned translucent, then hardened into a crystalline substance. Diamond Storm. He punched the door. It didn't dent. It shattered. The tungsten exploded inward like glass, sending shrapnel tearing through the hallway beyond. Ash stepped over the twisted metal threshold. He looked at the corridor filled with smoke and terrified soldiers. Where is he? Ash asked the darkness. The holding cells. Deep in the bowels of the facility, in a room lined with lead and dampening runes, Sabrina sat cross-legged on the cold floor. She was exhausted. The dampening field made her head throb, like a migraine that wouldn't end. Across the room, Annabelle was pacing, rubbing her wrists where the cuffs had been. Caitlin was curled in the corner, staring at the wall, her eyes terrifyingly blank. He's here, Sabrina whispered. Annabelle stopped pacing. Can you feel him? No, Sabrina said. I can't feel anything, that's how I know. The floor vibrated. A dust mote fell from the ceiling. Then another. Then, the heavy steel door of their cell block groaned. He's not using technique, Caitlin murmured, her voice hollow. He's using hate. Boom. The door didn't open. It was ripped off its hinges. It flew across the room and embedded itself in the far wall, missing Annabelle by inches. Standing in the smoke was not Ash, it was a creature. It stood on 2 legs, but its silhouette was wrong. Spikes of aura protruded from its back. Its eyes were glowing white slits. Its hands were stained with oil and soot. Ash. Annabelle whispered, stepping forward. The creature blinked. The white glow receded, revealing frantic, brown eyes. Are you hurt? Ash asked. His voice was raw, desperate. He rushed into the room, checking Annabelle for wounds, his hands shaking. We're fine, Annabelle said, grabbing his face to stop him. Ash, look at me, we're fine. I couldn't stop them, Ash choked out. I watched them take you. And now you're here, Sabrina said, standing up. She looked at Mewtwo, who drifted into the room behind Ash, and you brought the cavalry. Mewtwo looked at the three women. He was insistent. The director, Caitlin said, standing up. Her blank look was gone, replaced by a cold fury. He's in the lower lab. He took blood samples from us. He said something about completing the sequence. Go, Ash told them. Get to the surface. Mewtwo will cover you. I will? Mewtwo raised an eyebrow. I'm not leaving you, Annabelle argued. Yes, you are, Ash said. The gold aura flared around him, hot and commanding. Because what I'm about to do to him. I don't want you to watch. He turned to the door. Take them, Mewtwo, please. Mewtwo looked at Ash. He saw the darkness swirling in the boy's heart. It was an abyss even a psychic type hesitated to look into. Do not die, Mewtwo ordered. He turned to the girls. Come. The ceiling is the quickest exit. Mewtwo blasted a hole in the roof of the cell. He levitated the three protesting women up through the shaft. Ash was alone. He turned toward the elevator shaft that led down, to the core. The core director Holloway stood on a suspended platform over a massive reactor. The room was bathed in eerie green light. In his hand, he held a syringe filled with a swirling, neon orange liquid. You're late, Holloway said. Ash stepped off the elevator. He walked onto the platform. He didn't look at the reactor. He looked at the syringe. It's over, Holloway, Ash said. Your army is broken. Your facility is burning. The facility is a shell, Holloway dismissed, turning to face him. He looked manic. His skin was pale, sweat beading on his brow. The data is what matters. And thanks to your friends, I have the final variables. He tapped the syringe. Deoxys DNA. Mutable. Adaptable. But unstable. It needed a stabilizing agent. Psychic, empathic, and kinetic energy signatures to bind the helix. Holloway smiled. I didn't just want to capture you, Ash. I wanted to replace you. Why rely on a biological accident like you when we can build a god? He plunged the needle into his own neck. Ash moved to stop him, but a shockwave of force knocked him back. Holloway screamed. It was a sound of tearing flesh. His lab coat shredded. His skin turned a sleek, alien orange and blue. His arms elongated, twisting into tentacles. A crystalline organ erupted from his chest, glowing with a baleful purple light. He grew. 7 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet. Holloway was gone. In his place hovered a monstrosity. A Deoxys chimera, human intelligence merged with extraterrestrial regeneration. Perfection. The voice didn't come from a mouth, it came from the air itself. Ash stood up. He cracked his neck. You think stealing DNA makes you a god? Ash asked quietly. Holloway lashed out. His tentacles stretched instantly, moving at Mach speeds. Ash didn't dodge. He caught it. He grabbed the alien appendage with his bare hand. The impact cracked the floor beneath him, but Ash didn't slide an inch. Ash looked up. His eyes were slit pupils again. It just makes you a ditto with a complex. Ash squeezed. Ice punch. Flash freezing cold traveled up the tentacle. The alien flesh turned brittle. Holloway shrieked in confusion and pain, retracting the limb, shattering the frozen tip. Impossible. I am the ultimate life form. Holloway shifted forms. Speed form. He vanished. He was a blur of motion, striking Ash from every angle. Retreat, retreat. Ash stood in the center of the storm. He closed his eyes. He didn't chase the speed. He sensed the intent, there. Ash spun, driving his elbow backward, future sight. He didn't hit Holloway. He hit the empty air where Holloway was going to be. A split second later, Holloway slammed into Ash's elbow. The impact folded the creature in half. Holloway crashed into the reactor casing. He roared, shifting again. Defense form. His body became bulky, armored plates covering his core. You cannot break me. Ash walked forward. The golden ichor in his veins began to shine through his skin, turning him into a silhouette of pure light. I learned something today, Ash said. From Mewtwo. He told me that a toolbox needs an architect. Ash raised his hand. Energy began to gather, but it wasn't one color. Fire. Water. Electric. grass, dark, psychic. Every type of energy swirled into his palm, coalescing into a sphere that looked like a miniature star. It was unstable, beautiful, and terrifying. And you know what the architect's job is? Ash leapt. Holloway tried to block. He braced his armored arms. Ash slammed the sphere into Holloway's chest core. Judgment. It wasn't the true move of Arceus. Ash wasn't there yet, but it was a mimicry so powerful it blurred the line. A blast of Omni-type energy that struck every weakness simultaneously. The white light swallowed the room. The defense form armor disintegrated. The Deoxys DNA unraveled. Holloway screamed as his stolen power was stripped away, cell by cell. The blast blew the back out of the facility. The reactor exploded. The aftermath. Ash stood on the edge of the ruined platform. The facility was collapsing around him. Below, in the wreckage of the reactor, Holloway lay broken. He was human again, mostly. His skin was burned, his limbs twisted. He was crawling toward a control console. It doesn't matter, Holloway wheezed, coughing up blue blood. The sequence is uploaded. Ash walked over. He looked down at the man who had hunted him. Uploaded where? Holloway slammed his hand on a red button. To the heavens. The ceiling of the cavern opened, a hidden silo launch bay. Engines ignited. A massive rocket, bearing the insignia of the Hall of Origin, not the mythical place, but a space station named in hubris, roared to life. The satellite grid, Holloway laughed, blood bubbling on his lips. It will deploy. The null field. Globally. No more Pokemon. No more monsters. The rocket began to lift. Ash looked at the rocket. He looked at Holloway. You missed one, Ash said. Ash turned and ran. He didn't run for the exit. He ran for the silo walls. He sprinted up the vertical concrete. He jumped, grabbing the landing struts of the ascending rocket. Ash. Mewtwo's voice echoed in his head. What are you doing? The facility is detonating. Get the girls clear. Ash projected back. I'm going up. You cannot survive orbit. Watch me. The rocket cleared the silo. It pierced the clouds, riding a pillar of fire toward the stratosphere. Clinging to the side, buffeted by G-force and freezing winds, Ash Ketchum looked down at the shrinking world. His eyes burned gold. He wasn't letting go. Chapter 7 End. Chapter 8, Global Siege. The atmosphere screamed. It was a sound beyond hearing, a physical vibration that rattled the bones of the world. Ash Ketchum was clinging to the side of an ICBM traveling at Mach 23, tearing through the mesosphere. His fingers, buried deep into the titanium plating of the rocket's fuselage, were no longer fingers. They were talons of diamond-hard organic matter, fused to the metal. His clothes had long since shredded away, leaving only the fluctuating, iridescent armor of his skin. He was burning. The friction of the ascent turned the air around him into plasma. A normal human would have been ash in seconds. A steel type would have melted. Ash closed his eyes against the blinding white fire. Adapt. It wasn't a conscious thought anymore. It was a biological imperative. The Mew DNA, sensing the hostile environment, scrolled through the genetic library of Earth's history, searching for a solution. Heat resistance. Magmar. No, insufficient. Skin density. Aggron. Too heavy. Vacuum survival. Deoxys. The change was agonizing. Ash's lungs collapsed, purging all air. His respiratory system shut down. His skin turned a sleek, alien orange and teal, slick and non-porous. He didn't need to breathe. He needed to endure cosmic radiation. The roaring wind stopped abruptly. Silence. Absolute, crushing silence. Ash opened his eyes. The plasma fire was gone. Below him, the Earth was a massive, glowing curve of blue and white. Above him, the stars were hard, unblinking diamonds in a sea of infinite black. He was in orbit. The rocket's engines cut out. It drifted toward a massive structure hanging in the void. A wheel of silver metal rotating slowly against the darkness. The Hall of Origin station. Ash let go of the rocket. He didn't fall. He drifted, weightless. He looked at the station. Rows of green lights flickered along its spine. Okay. Ash's thought projected into the void, devoid of sound. Round 2. The surface. Kalos region. Mewtwo stood amidst the burning wreckage of the citadel. The firelight reflected in his violet eyes. Beside him, the three women huddled together, battered, exhausted, but alive. "He's gone," Caitlin whispered, looking up at the empty night sky. "He's really gone." "He's not dead," Sabrina said sharply. She was pressing a hand to her temple, straining. "I can feel him. It's faint. Like a radio signal from the bottom of the ocean. But he's there." "He's in orbit," Mewtwo confirmed. The fool actually survived the ascent. Annabelle pulled a communication device from the belt of an unconscious Null trooper. It was crackling with static. "Repeat, global grid activation initiated. Sector 4 dark. Wait, our Pokémon. Their energy levels are dropping." "It's starting," Annabelle said, her face pale. The rocket carried the master key. "The satellite network is activating." "What does that mean?" Caitlin asked. As if to answer, the Charizard that had been circling above them, one of Leon's patrol units that had arrived late to the scene, suddenly roared in distress. The flame on its tail flickered and dimmed to a candle's width. The dragon plummeted from the sky, too weak to flap its wings. Mewtwo caught the Charizard with psychic force, lowering it gently to the ground. He examined the creature. "The field," Mewtwo snarled. "It is neutralizing infinity energy. It is separating the biological bond between Pokémon and their elemental nature." He looked at his own hands. They were flickering. "If that grid reaches 100%, Mewtwo said gravely, every Pokémon on Earth will be reduced to a mundane animal. Or they will simply die from the shock." "We need to warn them," Annabelle said. "We need the League." "The League is slow," Sabrina countered. "They'll debate while the world ends." Mewtwo floated up, his cape billowing in the hot wind of the burning base. "Then we do not call the League," Mewtwo stated. "We call the army." Winden. Galar region. The Rose Tower. Leon, the former monarch, stared at the massive monitors in the command center. Beside him, Cynthia, Sinnoh, and Stephen Stone, Hoenn, stood in stunned silence. They had gathered for an emergency summit regarding the anomaly reports, but now, the crisis was undeniable. Reports coming in from every region, the operator shouted. "Power plants in Kanto are failing. The electric types can't generate current. Farming in Unova is halted. Grass types are withering. The Pokémon centers are overflowing with comatose patients." "It's an extinction event," Cynthia said, her voice terrifyingly calm. She gripped her Garchomp's Pokéball. It felt cold. "Someone is turning off the magic." "We can't fight a satellite network from the ground," Stephen said, analyzing the schematic on the screen. "We don't have the range." Suddenly, the screens flickered. The tactical maps dissolved. A face appeared on every monitor in the room, in every monitor in the world. It wasn't a human face. It was Mewtwo. "Humans of the Alliance," the clone's voice spoke, not from speakers, but directly into their minds. Leon stepped back, hand on his belt. "Mewtwo, listen closely," Mewtwo commanded. "The threat is in orbit. A weapon designed to strip this world of its soul. You cannot stop it. Your politics cannot stop it." The image on the screen shifted. It showed a grainy, telescopic image of a figure floating in space, surrounded by a glowing pink aura, fighting automated drones outside a massive space station. "Ash?" Leon breathed. "Is that Ash? The ancestor fights alone," Mewtwo continued. "But he cannot be everywhere. The satellites are shielded. We need to break the shield." "How?" Cynthia demanded, stepping toward the screen. "We can't reach them." "You cannot," Mewtwo replied. "But the old ones can. Low Earth orbit." Ash was dying. Again. He kicked off the hull of the space station, dodging a silent beam of green laser fire. The station's automated defense system was relentless. Hundreds of small drones swarmed him like angry beedrills, firing null energy beams. Ash spun, his body shifting. Steel type. He took a hit to the shoulder, the metal skin boiling away, but he kept moving. He reached out with his mind. He grabbed a drone, crushed it with telekinesis, and hurled the debris at another. 2 down. 400 to go. "I can't get inside," Ash realized. "The shielding is too thick. And if I stay out here, I'll freeze or get shot." He looked down at the Earth. He saw the grid of satellites, thousands of them, forming a web of red laser light around the planet. The null field was tightening. He felt the screams of millions of Pokémon, a chaotic chorus of pain and confusion. I can't do this alone, Ash thought. The despair tasted like iron. You are not alone. The voice wasn't Mewtwo's. It was older, deeper. It sounded like the tectonic plates shifting. Ash blinked. Zygarde? We hear the silence, the voice echoed. The balance is broken. Ash closed his eyes. He stopped fighting the drones. He let his barrier take the hits. He reached deep into the helix. He found the frequency of the first one. The frequency of Mew. Help me, Ash projected. He didn't send the message to the humans. He sent it to the storms. To the volcanoes. To the deep oceans. To the ozone layer. Wake up. The sky pillar. Hoenn. The stone tower shook. Dust fell from the ancient carvings. At the very peak, the green serpent uncoiled. Rayquaza opened its yellow eyes. It felt the call. Not a Pokeball beam. Not a command. A plea from kin. The ancestor calls. Rayquaza roared. It launched itself upward, shattering the sound barrier instantly. It didn't stop at the clouds. It kept going. The Whirl Islands. Johto. The ocean exploded. A massive white avian shot out of the water, shedding droplets that turned to rainbows. Lugia spread its wings, catching the thermal currents, angling its ascent straight up. The spear pillar. Sinnoh. Space distorted. Palkia stepped out of a rift. Time warped. Dialga roared. They looked up at the sky, sensing the cage being built around their reality. They began to rise. Winden Command Center. Sir. The operator screamed. Multiple high-energy signatures detected. Radar is lighting up. Missiles? Leon asked. No, sir. Biologicals. They're leaving the atmosphere. Cynthia watched the screen. She saw the green streak of Rayquaza piercing the mesosphere. She saw the blue streak of Latios and Latias. She saw the trio of legendary birds, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, flying in a V formation, wreathed in elemental energy, pushing higher than birds should be able to fly. They aren't fleeing, Steven whispered, awestruck. They're answering. Space. Ash opened his eyes. The drones were closing in for the kill. A heavy laser battery aimed at his chest. A beam of green light obliterated the drone. Ash turned. Rayquaza floated there, massive and serpentine, its scales glistening in the starlight. It coiled around the station's perimeter, crushing a drone in its jaws. Ride. Rayquaza's voice echoed in Ash's mind. Ash didn't hesitate. He launched himself off the station hull, drifting through the void until he grabbed one of Rayquaza's dorsal fins. He pulled himself onto the dragon's head. Rayquaza's skin was warm. An aura of ozone protected them both. Ash stood up. He looked out at the void. They weren't alone. Lugia drifted on his left, blasting satellites with Aeroblast. Ho-Oh streamed past on the right, melting a cluster of drones with sacred fire. Deoxys, 3 of them, swarmed the station's sensors, changing forms rapidly to dismantle the defenses. It was an armada. The pantheon of Earth had arrived to defend its children. Okay, Ash said, grinning despite the vacuum. He pointed his hand at the massive Hall of Origin station. Tear it down. Rayquaza roared, a psychic vibration that shook the station. The Dragon Lord surged forward. Dragon Ascent. Ash held on as they accelerated to speeds that blurred the stars. They slammed into the station's outer shield. Crash. The shield flared gold, then shattered. Rayquaza tore through the hull plating, ripping a hole 10 meters wide in the side of the fortress. Ash let go. He dove into the breach, inside the station. Ash hit the deck rolling. Gravity was artificial here, heavy and disorienting. The air was sterile. Intruder detected, a mechanical voice announced. Deploying null sentinels. Doors slid open. Rows of robotic soldiers marched out. They weren't human. They were droids, modeled after Darkrai, armed with the same dampening tech. Ash stood up. His orange Deoxys skin faded, returning to his human form, but glowing with the aftermath of space travel. He didn't raise his fists. He raised his mind. He was connected to Rayquaza outside. He was connected to Lugia. He was connected to Mewtwo on the ground. He was the hub. You want to fight? Ash asked the droids. He snapped his fingers. Psychic terrain. The floor turned a neon purple. The air grew thick and strange. I brought friends. Outside, Rayquaza fired a hyper beam through the breach Ash had entered. The massive beam of energy annihilated the squadron of droids instantly. Ash walked through the molten wreckage. He reached the central control room. It was a dome of glass, overlooking the Earth. In the center sat the Master Console, and guarding it was not a robot. It was a hologram, a digital avatar of Halloway, preserved in the system. Persistent vermin, the AI Halloway sneered. The upload is 98% complete. The grid is self-sustaining. Delete, Ash said. He walked up to the console. He placed his hand on the interface. He didn't hack it with code, he hacked it with biology. Technoblast. Ash channeled the digital data of a Porygon Z. He injected a virus directly into the station's mainframe. The screens flashed red. Error. System corruption. Biological override. No. The AI screamed. You cannot stop progress. I'm not stopping progress, Ash said softly. I'm evolving it. He pushed. The console sparked and exploded. The red web around the Earth on the main screen flickered and died. Outside, the satellites powered down. The null field dissipated. The surface. The Charizard on the ground in Kalos gasped. The flame on its tail roared back to life, bright and hot. In the Pokemon centers, the comatose patients woke up. In the Badlands, Caitlin looked at her hands. Violet sparks danced between her fingers. It's back, she whispered. She looked up at the sky, tears in her eyes. He did it. Mewtwo lowered his head, a rare expression of respect crossing his face. He did not just break the cage, Mewtwo said. He rallied the wardens. The station. Ash stood in the smoking ruin of the control room. The station was shaking. Gravity was failing. He was tired. So tired. He looked out the window. The legendaries were dispersing, returning to their slumber. Rayquaza lingered for a moment, staring into the room, before turning back toward the ozone layer. Ash slumped against the broken console. Mission accomplished, he mumbled. He tapped his earpiece, which had miraculously survived. Mewtwo. You there. Static. Then, a clear voice. I am here, Ash. Tell the girls. Ash coughed. The golden blood was back. Tell them I'm waiting for a pickup. I don't think I can fly back down. Hold your position, Mewtwo said. I am teleporting to your coordinates. Do not drift away. Ash slid down to the floor. He looked at the Earth one last time. It was bright. It was loud. It was alive. But as he watched, a shadow fell over the room. Not from the Earth. From the deep dark of space behind the station. Ash turned his head. A rift was opening in the void. A tear in reality. It wasn't an ultra wormhole. It was something else. Something gold and terrifying. From the rift, a single, massive eye opened. It gazed at Ash with an intelligence that made Mewtwo look like a toddler. Arceus. The creator had noticed the noise. Ash scrambled to his feet, adrenaline spiking one last time. Uh-oh, Ash whispered. Chapter 8 End. Chapter 9. The Event Horizon. The universe did not blink. Ash stood in the ruined control center of the Hall of Origin, the vacuum of space kept at bay by a flickering emergency force field. He looked out into the abyss, and the abyss looked back with a golden, vertical pupil the size of a galaxy. Arceus. The entity didn't have a physical form in the traditional sense. It was a silhouette of blinding white light wreathed in a golden wheel, floating in a tear in the fabric of reality. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly indifferent. Ash felt his knees tremble. It wasn't fear. His adrenal glands had burned out hours ago. It was pressure. The sheer ontological weight of standing before the Creator made his very atoms want to disperse. I didn't steal it, Ash whispered, his voice vibrating through his skull. He knew Arceus wasn't listening to sound waves. I didn't ask to be this. The eye narrowed. A sensation washed over Ash. It wasn't telepathy. It was a download. A judgment. Anomaly. Variable. Glitch. Arceus was analyzing him. It was deciding whether Ash was a necessary evolution or a cancerous error in the code of reality. If it decided the latter, there would be no battle. Ash would simply cease to have ever existed. Interference detected. The mechanical roar shattered the divine silence. The floor beneath Ash buckled. The walls of the station groaned, metal screeching against metal. Ash spun around. The destroyed console where he had uploaded the Porygon virus was glowing. But it wasn't the red of the null energy. It was a chaotic, shifting rainbow of colors. Did you think you could delete me? The voice was Holloway's, but it was synthesized, layered over the grinding gears of the station itself. I am not in the software, boy. I am the hardware. Cables burst from the walls like serpentine arteries. They lashed out, plugging into the floating debris of the destroyed drones. The station itself began to fold, transform, and reconfigure. The solar panels became wings. The docking bay became a maw. Holloway hadn't just uploaded his mind to the computer. He had merged his consciousness with the station's core, a core powered by synthesized Arceus plates. The station was becoming a mechanical god. The creator watches. Holloway's voice boomed from every speaker, vibrating the hull. Good. Let him watch his replacement. A massive mechanical arm, formed from the station's superstructure, smashed through the force field. The vacuum rushed in. Ash was sucked out. He tumbled into the void. No air, no sound, just the biting cold and the blinding light of the stars. He managed to right himself, his body glowing with the orange adaptability of Deoxys to survive the vacuum. He looked up. The Hall of Origin station was gone. In its place hovered a titan of steel and light, 3 miles high. Its core shone with the 18 colors of the elemental types. Judgment Protocol. Online. The Titan Holloway raised a hand. A beam of fire-type energy, wide enough to engulf a city, erupted toward Ash. Ash couldn't dodge. He was drifting. Suddenly, the space around him warped. Teleport. Ash appeared a mile away, floating in a bubble of pink psychic energy. He gasped, reflexively, though there was no air, and looked around. Mewtwo floated beside him, his arms crossed, his eyes glowing fiercely. And inside the bubble with them, protected by life support suits generated by psychic constructs, were Sabrina, Annabelle, and Caitlin. "You're late," Ash projected, a weak grin forming on his face. "Traffic was terrible," Sabrina replied, her mind voice crisp and relieved. She was holding her hands out, maintaining the atmospheric bubble around them. "We saw the readout," Annabelle said, her mental tone frantic. "The station, it's using the plates. It has type omnipotence." "It's Holloway," Ash said. "He wants to fight God. He thinks he can prove he's the apex. He's going to get us all erased," Caitlin added. She looked past Ash, at the silent, watching form of Arceus in the distance. The creator hadn't moved. It was waiting. "If we don't stop that machine, the big one over there is going to format the hard drive." "Ash," Mewtwo said, floating forward. "The Titan is shielded by a rotating type barrier. It shifts every microsecond. Physical attacks will bounce. Special attacks will be absorbed. So it's a puzzle," Ash said. He clenched his fists. The golden blood inside him rallied. "I'm good at puzzles. We will handle the defense," Mewtwo ordered. He gestured to the girls. "Focus your energies on shielding Ash. I will disrupt the Titan's targeting systems." "Ash." Mewtwo looked at him. "You must break the core." "Got it," Ash said. He stepped out of the safety bubble. The cold hit him, but he ignored it. He focused on the Titan. "Hey, ugly," Ash projected. The Titan turned its massive head. "You. Come and get me." Ash flew. He didn't fly like a bird. He flew like a comet. He accelerated toward the Titan, trailing a wake of golden light. The Titan fired. Thunderbolt. A jagged spear of lightning the size of a skyscraper. Ash didn't dodge. His skin turned rough, brown, and insulated. Ground type. The lightning hit him and grounded out harmlessly. Ice beam. Ash's skin flared silver. Steel type. The ice shattered against his chest. Flamethrower. Ash turned blue. Water type. He swam through the fire. He was closing the distance. Annoyance. Holloway droned. The Titan changed tactics. The core in its chest spun rapidly. It didn't fire one beam. It fired 18. A barrage of every elemental type, converging on a single point. Ash. "Ash, pull up," Annabelle screamed in his mind. "No," Ash thought. "I can't stop." He couldn't shift to 18 types at once. It was biologically impossible, even for Mew. But he wasn't alone. "Now," Mewtwo commanded. From the psychic bubble, 3 minds reached out. Sabrina, Annabelle, Caitlin. They didn't attack Holloway. They poured everything they had into Ash. Sabrina gave him focus. The ability to process the threat. Annabelle gave him empathy. The ability to sense the energy's intent. Caitlin gave him power. Raw, unadulterated psychic fuel. Ash felt them. It was like being plugged into a star. Protean Max. Ash didn't change his body. He changed the space around him. He projected a psychic field that rotated types defensively. A barrier of fire blocked the ice. A barrier of fairy blocked the dragon. A barrier of ground blocked the electric. He smashed through the barrage, untouched. He reached the Titan's chest. The core was there, behind a wall of transparent aluminum and force fields. Get off me. The Titan swatted at him. Ash caught the hand. He was 6 feet tall. The Titan was 3 miles high. But Ash Ketchum didn't care about size classes. He gritted his teeth. His muscles bulged, tearing his skin. The golden light spilled out, blindingly bright. Seismic toss. He couldn't throw the station. But he could throw himself with enough force to alter the station's trajectory. He spun, using the Titan's own momentum, and slammed the massive metal hand back into its own chest. Crunch. The impact shattered the outer shielding of the core. Error. Structural integrity compromised. I'm just getting started. Ash roared. He dove into the hole he had made. He was inside the Titan now, flying through the service corridors toward the central processor. Defensive turrets popped out of the walls. Ash dismantled them with telekinetic swipes, not breaking stride. He reached the spark. It was a chamber of pulsing light. The 18 synthesized plates drifted in a ring around a digital heart, Holloway's consciousness. You cannot win, Holloway's voice echoed in the small room. I have analyzed your biology. You are dying. Every time you shift, you lose 1% of your cellular cohesion. Ash landed on the walkway. He stumbled. Holloway was right. His hands were fading, turning into drifting particles of light. I don't need to live, Ash said, standing up. I just need to make sure you don't. Then die. The plates spun. They aligned. They began to draw in energy from the vacuum. Holloway was charging a judgment of his own. A blast meant to wipe Ash out and challenge Arceus directly. Ash watched the energy build. It was too much. Even with the girls supporting him, he couldn't tank a point-blank blast from 18 plates. He needed a move that didn't exist. He needed to combine everything. Ash closed his eyes. He remembered the feeling of Pikachu on his shoulder. The smell of Pallet Town. The taste of Brock's cooking. The feeling of Misty pulling his ear. The weight of the World Championship trophy. He remembered Annabelle's hand. Sabrina's voice. Caitlin's storm. Connection. Mew wasn't just the ancestor of genes. Mew was the ancestor of bonds. Ash opened his eyes. They weren't brown. They weren't purple. They were a kaleidoscope. He raised his right hand. Mewtwo. Ash projected. Get them out of here. Minimum safe distance. Ash. Mewtwo's voice was alarmed. What are you doing? The energy readings. You are going critical. I'm making a new move, Ash said. The plates fired. A beam of white annihilation screamed toward him. Ash stepped into it. He didn't block it. He grabbed it. He caught the beam in his bare hands. His skin began to peel away, dissolving into stardust. But he held on. He pulled the energy into himself. He mixed it with his own life force. Creation. Destruction. Life. Death. What are you doing? Holloway screamed. The digital voice cracked with fear. You cannot hold that. You will unmake yourself. Ash smiled. It was a sad, tired smile. That's the plan. He compressed the energy. He took the power of the plates, the power of the Titan, and the power of his own soul, and he squeezed it into a sphere the size of a baseball in his palm. It pulsed with a sound that silenced the universe. Genesis supernova. Ash crushed the sphere. The view from distance. Mewtwo teleported the bubble 10 miles away. Sabrina, Annabelle, and Caitlin watched through the psychic glass. They saw the Titan. Then, they saw a flash. It wasn't an explosion. It was an expansion. A sphere of pure, white light expanded from the center of the station. It moved silently. Where the light touched, the metal didn't melt. It simply ceased to be mechanical. The Titan dissolved. The steel turned into petals. The wires turned into vines. The reactor core turned into water. The massive war machine was rewritten on a molecular level. It became a cloud of flowers, ice crystals, water droplets, and stardust. Holloway's scream was cut short as his consciousness was scattered into static. The light faded. The Titan was gone. In the center of the drifting cloud of creation, a small figure floated. He wasn't glowing anymore. He wasn't moving. Ash! Annabelle screamed. The void. Ash was drifting. It was peaceful here. No noise. No pain. He couldn't feel his legs. He couldn't feel his arms. He felt like he was spreading out, becoming thin, like butter scraped over too much bread. So this is it, he thought. Not bad. He floated toward the great rift. Toward the eye. Arceus was still watching. Ash drifted until he was floating directly in front of the entity. He was a speck of dust before a star. Did I pass? Ash wondered. The eye blinked. A voice spoke. Not a download. A voice. Sufficient. Arceus shifted. The golden wheel turned. A beam of light, soft and warm, shot from the creator. It hit Ash. It didn't heal him. It didn't fix his DNA. It stabilized him. It took the unraveling edges of his existence and knotted them tight. It locked his form. You are not the replacement, the voice echoed, gentle now. You are the bridge. The light pushed him away. Gently. Back toward the earth. Back toward the life he fought for. The rift began to close. Arceus was leaving. The test was over. Ash felt gravity take hold. He was falling toward the planet. But he wasn't falling alone. A purple blur caught him. Mewtwo. The clone grabbed Ash's limp body. He checked for a pulse. You idiot, Mewtwo whispered, his voice shaking. You absolute, reckless idiot. He looked at Ash's face. Ash was unconscious, his skin pale, the golden veins now settled into faint, scar-like tracings on his arms. But he was breathing. Mewtwo looked up at the closing rift. He nodded once to the creator. Then, he turned to the bubble where the girls were weeping with relief. We are going home, Mewtwo said. He activated his teleport. The group vanished from the cold dark, leaving only the cloud of flowers drifting in orbit, a monument to the boy who turned a weapon into a garden. Chapter 9 End. Chapter 10. The New Genesis. The world did not end with a bang, but with a press conference. Ash Ketchum watched it from a hospital bed in the highest, most secure spire of the Rose Tower in Wyndon. He was sitting up, his chest heavily bandaged, a cup of lukewarm tea resting in his hands. On the massive screen on the wall, Chairman Rose, who had been reinstated purely for crisis management, and Champion Leon were addressing a sea of reporters. The solar event was a natural phenomenon. Leon was lying, his smile tight and practiced. A coronal mass ejection that interfered with satellite technology. The Global Alliance, working with top specialists, has neutralized the radiation. The Pokemon ecology is stabilizing. Ash muted the TV. They're lying well, he rasped. They have to. A voice came from the balcony. Mewtwo stood there, leaning against the glass door, staring out at the gray Galar sky. He wasn't wearing his armor anymore. He wore a heavy cloak, looking like a wandering monk. If the public knew that a man tried to rewrite reality, or that you nearly broke the universe to stop him, panic would be absolute. Ash looked down at his tea. He looked at his reflection in the dark liquid. He looked different. The stabilization from Arceus hadn't erased the changes, it had codified them. His eyes were still warm brown, but in direct light, the pupils shifted to vertical slits. And his skin. He traced the line of his forearm. Faint, shimmering gold tracings ran along his veins, glowing softly whenever his heart beat. He was a living map of high-energy biology. Where are they? Ash asked. Asleep, Mewtwo replied, nodding toward the adjoining suite. They sustained severe psychic backlash keeping you alive inside the Titan. They have not left your side in 3 days. I forced them to rest. Ash smiled, a soft, genuine expression. And you? I do not sleep, Mewtwo lied. He looked tired. The battle in space had drained him more than he would admit. I wait. For what? For the League to decide what to do with a weapon they cannot control. The council room. 3 days later. The doors to the summit hall opened. Ash walked in. He wore a simple black hoodie and jeans, Pikachu perched on his shoulder. He didn't look like a god. He looked like a teenager who needed a haircut. But the room went silent. Sitting around the massive circular table were the titans of the human world. Cynthia of Sinnoh, Lance of Johto, Stephen of Hoenn, Diantha of Kalos, Leon of Galar, and Gita of Paldea. They didn't look at him like a peer. They looked at him like an unexploded bomb. Ash, Cynthia said, breaking the silence. She stood up, her expression unreadable. We're glad you're awake. Are you? Ash asked. He pulled out a chair and sat down. He didn't slouch. He sat with a predatory stillness. Because the guards outside have their hands on their belts, and I can feel 3 alakazams behind the wall trying to read my mind. Gita sighed, waving a hand. The psychic pressure in the room vanished. Precaution, Gita said smoothly. You must understand, Mr. Ketchum. The data from the Hall of Origin, it's terrifying. You generated an energy output that exceeded the capability of the ultimate weapon. You are, legally and biologically, a sovereign nation. We can't let you wander, Lance said, his voice gruff but not unkind. If you have a bad day, if you get sick, the fallout could level a city. The UN wants you contained. Contained, Ash repeated. The gold veins in his neck flared slightly. Pikachu's cheeks sparked. I'm not going in a cage, Lance, Ash said softly. I just broke out of one. We know, Leon interjected quickly. We aren't suggesting a prison. We're suggesting a sanctuary. Ash leaned back. Go on. Stephen Stone slid a tablet across the table. It showed a map of a remote island, located in the misty seas between Hoenn and Kanto. It was uncharted on civilian maps. Faraway Island, Stephen said. It's a dead zone for navigation. The currents are treacherous. The magnetic field is chaotic. It's where, well, it's where the old texts say Mu was first discovered. It's rich in ambient energy, Cynthia added. The tree of beginning has a root system that surfaces there. It would sustain you, stabilize you. You want to exile me, Ash said. We want to give you a kingdom, Diantha corrected. The League will recognize Faraway Island as an independent state. No jurisdiction. No paparazzi. No tourists. You live there. You train there. You stay off the grid. Ash looked at the map. It was green, isolated, and wild. It looked like peace. And my friends? Ash asked. The champions exchanged glances. Sabrina, Annabelle, and Caitlin are high-level assets, Gita said. They have duties to the League. The doors to the council room opened again. They didn't open gently. They were thrown wide by a blast of telekinetic force. Sabrina walked in, flanked by Caitlin and Annabelle. They looked impeccable, dressed in travel gear, their eyes burning with a collective defiance. We resign, Sabrina stated, dropping her gym leader badge onto the table. It clattered loudly in the silence. I've already forwarded my resignation to the Battle Frontier Committee, Annabelle added, standing next to Ash. She put a hand on his shoulder. Effective immediately. And don't bother looking for a replacement for the Elite Four, Caitlin yawned, examining her nails. I was getting bored anyway. The challengers are too fragile. You can't just. Lance started, standing up. We can, Ash interrupted. He stood up. The air pressure in the room dropped. The lights flickered. A phantom tail of pink energy lashed behind him for a split second. I saved the world, Ash said. His voice echoed with the dual-tone resonance. I cleaned up your mess. I defeated your rogue director. I don't ask for rewards. I don't ask for titles. He looked at the map of Faraway Island, then at his friends, his pack. I'll take the island. And I'm taking my family. If anyone steps foot in our waters without an invitation. Ash's eyes flashed purple. Quote. Mewtwo will escort them out. Aggressively. Cynthia smiled. It was a small, relieved smile. She sat back down. Motion carried, she said. 6 months later. Faraway Island was not a quiet place. It was a riot of life. The jungle canopy was thick with prehistoric plants that had regrown under the influence of Ash's aura. Wild Pokemon, Aerodactyls, Kabutops, and rare dragon types roamed the cliffs, drawn by the beacon of power. On the highest peak of the island, a structure had been built. It wasn't a fortress. It was a sprawling, open-air villa made of white stone and living wood, woven together by grass-type techniques. In the central courtyard, Caitlin was asleep. She floated on a lounge chair suspended in a gravity field, surrounded by a stack of books floating in orbit around her. Sabrina was in the garden, meditating with her alakazam. She was using her telekinesis to prune a massive bonsai tree, her expression one of rare peace. The static of the world couldn't reach her here. The only noise was Ash, and his noise was a melody she loved. Annabelle was on the veranda, going over supply manifests on a tablet. We're low on Oran berries, Annabelle called out. And someone ate the entire stock of lava cookies I imported from Hoenn. Guilty. Ash dropped from the sky. He landed lightly on the grass. He was shirtless, revealing the intricate, shimmering gold scars that ran from his hands up to his chest, the marks of the Genesis supernova. He looked stronger, healthier. The haunting gauntness of the transformation was gone, replaced by a lean, powerful athleticism. He held a basket of exotic fruit he'd gathered from the deep jungle. Mewtwo wanted the cookies, Ash grinned, walking over to Annabelle and dropping a kiss on her forehead. He says they help him think. He's sulking in the sea cave because Rayquaza did a flyby and didn't say hello, Annabelle sighed, leaning into him. She traced one of the gold lines on his arm. How are you feeling? Stable, Ash said. He flexed his hand. A small sphere of blue aura formed, then shifted to fire, then to leaves. He crushed it. The noise is gone. Arceus really fixed the leak. Sabrina opened her eyes and floated over. The noise is gone because you aren't fighting it anymore. You've accepted the nature. She landed beside him, brushing a leaf from his hair. The dynamic between them had settled into something unspoken and unbreakable. They were a unit, a hive mind of four. It's quiet, Caitlin murmured, not opening her eyes. I like it. Ash looked around his kingdom. It was a paradise. He had the woman who understood his mind, Sabrina, the woman who understood his heart, Annabelle, and the woman who understood his power, Caitlin. He was the strongest being on the planet. Governments feared him. Legendaries acknowledged him. But standing there, with the sun on his face and Pikachu chasing a Butterfree in the grass, he just felt home. Ping. A sound cut through the air. A high-pitched electronic chime. Annabelle looked at her tablet. Her eyebrows shot up. We have a perimeter breach, she said. Ash stiffened. Military. No. Annabelle tapped the screen, bringing up a live feed from the shore. Civilian. Single vessel. Small craft. Sabrina peered at the screen. A boat. Through the whirlpools. That's suicide. He's through, Caitlin said, sitting up and stretching. I can feel his intent. It's bright. Annoyingly bright. Ash walked to the edge of the cliff. He looked down at the beach far below. A small, battered wooden boat had beached on the sand. A figure hopped out. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, with messy hair and a backpack that looked too big for him. And on his shoulder, a small, sparking electric mouse. A Pichu. The boy looked up at the massive cliffs. He didn't look scared. He looked excited. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Hello. The boy screamed. I'm looking for the Phantom King. I want to battle. Ash blinked. Then, he started to laugh. It was a full, hearty laugh that shook the leaves on the trees. Pikachu ran over, peering over the edge, and let out a delighted chaw. He's looking for the Phantom King. Ash grinned, adjusting his hat, turning it backward for the first time in months. Are you going to disintegrate him? Caitlin asked, floating up beside him. No, Ash said. His eyes flashed with that mischievous, competitive spark. The gold veins on his arms glowed brighter. I'm going to teach him. Ash turned to his court. Sabrina, set up a barrier so he doesn't fall off the mountain. Annabelle, get the guest room ready. Caitlin, try not to scare him too bad. No promises, Caitlin smirked. Ash stepped onto the ledge. The wind whipped his hair. He looked down at the challenger, a reflection of who he used to be, before the wars, before the gods, before the destiny. He felt the Mew DNA coil inside him, playful and ready. He felt the human heart beating steady and strong. Pikachu, Ash said. Let's go say hi. He jumped. He plummeted toward the beach, a streak of gold and lightning against the blue sky, ready for the next adventure. The cycle continued. But this time, he was the master. Chapter 10 End.